backpack and things like that, things that we've always done. But my very first week coming on to the housing authority, we had a major fire. I don't know if you guys have heard about that, but we had 4 units completely burn out. We had to move 4 families at a moment's notice. We had to get hotels. Some of them had mobility issues and everything like that. So that was my first biggest challenge when I came to the Housing Authority, and that's when I realized that the team that I have at the Housing Authority is top tier. So me coming in to lead them has been it's been a blessing because they are ready to work. It just took needing that guidance. We have worked on community partnerships. That was one thing that I said that I was going to work on coming in. Some of our partnerships that we have improved on is, of course, this body right here. We all know how that relationship used to look. Montgomery County, Clarksville Gas and Water, the electric company, Workforce Essential, Shaflet Charities. These are all people that we're out here meeting. The list goes on and on and on. One thing that I will tell you all is that we are very interested in continuing to build this relationship with the city and the county. We would like to see this city as a whole get opportunities through, I'm sorry, I can't say that acronym, Choices Neighborhood Initiative, which is a grant that is not just for the Housing Authority, but for the entire city. It doesn't just help build affordable housing, but we have to have that partnership. And I would like for this Lincoln Homes project to be the beginning of that partnership. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to our developer so he can talk about the amazing project that we're getting ready to do, and you guys can ask him any questions you like. I believe in transparency. You know I'll tell you the truth.
Councilman
Okay.
Streetman.
Before she steps away, I do have a comment I'd like to make
Okay.
directly to her. Miss Allen, I want to tell you, I know I told you this before the meeting, but I want to tell you what a phenomenal job that you are doing. I've heard nothing but great things from the community, both from members of the Housing Authority as well as a lot of other of our partners and individuals throughout the community. So thank you for coming in and doing such a wonderful job there. And Mayor, thank you for allowing me that moment to speak to her on that.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, council member.
If you would introduce the guest.
Yes, this is Ted Matcham. He is our lead developer. Me and him have started this. Well, we didn't start the project, but it was kind of waning and waving when I first got here, but it's moving full speed ahead now. So I'd like to go ahead and introduce Ted.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Again, Ted Matcom. I'm the market president for Gorman and Company, and I'm leading this. I actually had presented to you guys beforehand. A little bit of different tenor in the room last time we were here. And I have to say, Miss Wanda has just been a breath of fresh air and gets stuff done and has an amazing positive attitude. So we're in a much better place than we were at the beginning of the year. I've got a little PowerPoint for you guys to see. Again, this is a partnership for Lincoln Homes between Gorman and Company and the Clarksville Housing Authority. Why don't you go to the next? Oh, can I do this? Maybe I can do this. Okay, here we go.
This is self-serve here.
Self-serve, I love it. There we go. So Lincoln Homes actually is a historic community. It is the oldest low-income housing, public housing community in Clarksville. Total of 213 units. I'm going to put my glasses on because I can hear it. You can see the mix there. Quite a diverse mix of units that you have in Lincoln Homes. This is kind of where it is for people who don't exactly know where it is, right by Austin P, and near downtown here. This is the campus. Okay, so I don't know if you know the boundary roads, but Ferris is down below there. You got 8th Street and Sumner over on the left. It is a very in need of rehabilitation, I'm going to say. But an amazing kind of campus in and of itself and the way it's put together. Again, historic. We have historic signage that we're going to keep, and then we're also going to embellish that. With HUD, we have agreed in the community building to actually have a museum-style room that will tell the history of Lincoln Homes. and how it began with photos and narratives. So it'll be really cool on there. This is kind of when I presented to you before, what we had agreed to, and Councilperson Marquis was very helpful in terms of drafting a resolution that got this through. The red were the roads that were abandoned, in a sense, within the campus. The blue are the revised roads. And the purpose of the road reconfiguration was really to make it safer. There were people in the community that thought that the roads as they were presented a hazard for pedestrians and for vehicles. And so we straightened out the roads. If you can see like the red road that curved down to Ferris, we removed that. We replaced it with a 16-unit building. So, modest repairs and renovations to the roads, but needed. We've got 2 phases here. Now, what's amazing about this development is we got 2 9%, and I know you probably don't know what that means, but competitive awards from THDA for this project side by side. You never see that happening. It's amazing. And the reason it's so amazing is because THDA would not have given us the phase 1 and phase 2 if they weren't going to give us phase 3 and phase 4, which we're not doing now. It's in the future. They can only give us 2 awards, but we're doing phase 1 and phase 2 with these 2 awards. Phase 1 is shown to the right in red, and the second bullet there shows you what we're doing within phase 1. Demolition of 3 buildings, construction of 1 new 16-unit building, which was where that road was, and the rehabilitation of 6 buildings. So that's 51 units total, approximately $13 million in construction costs. And then phase 2 is right above it. That's in the blue. And again, very, very similar kind of scope, about $14 million in that because we have a little more units that we're dealing with. This is an amazingly clean sheet. So when you guys had given us a deadline of the June 13th to have our ducks in a row, we got our ducks in a row. So the only thing that we have on June 13th, we had all our financing committed. We had all of our scope, all of our permits submitted. These guys have been great to give us our permits for build. We are only waiting for HUD. And HUD has their own process, which you can't really control. They've got a lot of, questions that they ask, which are legitimate questions. And we're going through those and should be with a financial closing. Once HUD approves, we go to all our banks and our investors and THDA. We get everybody in a room and close this thing probably in October. But everyone's committed. All the sources are committed. Usually in this type of project, we'd come to the city and say, hey, we need $1 million. We need $2 million. We don't have to do that here. So the 9% award that we have for this is fully funding this, which means, and I don't know if you guys know how this works, but we get tax credits from THDA. Tax credits, I take the tax credits and I sell them to an investor. It's Huntington Bank who's buying these. And they give us the money for the tax credits. They use the tax credits. They give us the money for the tax credits. What the tax credit proceeds do is they take our construction costs and we apply those proceeds toward the construction costs. So our rent can be lower than, if we would just have a $10 million project and have, and charge rent to service the $10 million project, that rent would be high. The tax credits really subsidize that $10 million so that it's a lower cost, so we have less rent to service our debt. So it's a great great program through HUD that we're utilizing here, but again, 0 city dollars, which is amazing for this project. And we're going to get half of Lincoln Homes done. And as I said, we are very, very optimistic we'll get the other half of Lincoln Homes done once we complete this. So here's a rendering of the renovation of the existing units that we're doing. And here is a rendering of the new 16-unit buildings that we will put on the campus. These are also the one and two bedroom layouts if you wanted to know about those. The one bedroom's about 900 square feet. The two bedrooms about 1,100 square feet, and the three bedrooms about 1,300 square feet. So each one's about 200 square feet larger than the prior one. Any questions?
Thank you, sir, very much. We appreciate the update.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. I want to echo what Councilman Streetman said to Ms. Allen. Thank you. You're a breath of fresh air from the past two administrations over there. All right, we are now ready for the Planning Commission report. First item is item A, ordinance 01, 2026-27. Mr. Tyndall.
All right. Good evening, City Council. A couple cases in front of you tonight. First is Z24, 2026 from the Planning Commission, application of Lewis Contracting LLC. This is one parcel, currently .37 acres, currently zoned RM1, which is single family and mobile home residential district, and requesting to go to R3, three-family residential district. It's a parcel of land located on the western frontage of Evans Road, approximately 350 feet south of the intersection of Britton Springs and Evans Road. This was a former mobile home site. The applicant's statement is to divide into 3 lots, giving better use of the land to increase the number of residences. This is in Council Ward number 3 and is in our Lafayette Peters Mill planning area. Here's the future land use layer. It's a suburban neighborhood area, which typically is going to be single-family detached residential, but multifamily and denser single-family appropriate near our more major corridors such as Evans Road or Britton Springs Road. And here's the current zoning map. Apologize to those who are maybe a little colorblind. The dark orange, almost red, is your RM1. Your orange is R4. And you have some other zones of R1 and R2 and R3 scattered throughout there. There was a recent rezoning in the last 2 years just south of that. You'll see that R3 about 3 parcels south. And there's the site. The mobile home has been removed from the site. It was damaged during the tornado, for information on that. And here's looking down Evans Road toward the city, downtown, and then looking up Evans Road toward Britton Springs Road at the intersection up there. Department comments. CDE mentioned overhead lines do run along the property and they'll have to relocate them or provide an easement on the property. This is in the Fort Campbell noise disclosure area, and Fort Campbell said this will have to comply with section 9.3.6 part C of the Sabre Overlay District, which just deals with noise attenuation and notification of the future property owners on the plat. Historic estimates would put this at 3 units, which is also the applicant's estimate. Staff does recommend approval. The request is consistent with the overall objectives of the comprehensive plan. The suburban neighborhood designation encourages increased residential density or limited single-family attached and detached housing appropriate along major transportation corridors. And the proposed R3 is in character with the development pattern that has occurred in the area, and the Planning Commission also recommends approval.
Thank you, Mr. Tyndall. Any comment or question regarding this ordinance? Councilman Brown, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Tyndall, if you could go back a couple pictures, looking down, that one. Right. Is that the R3 that's at the end, like in that picture there? Is that about where that R3 is?
Yeah, that's some of the new homes that have recently been finished down there on that R3 subdivision.
Okay. Mike's kind of hot.
Yeah, those mics are echoing for some reason. Councilman Lovato, you're recognized.
Thank you. My mic is not hot. It's perfect temperature.
Okay.
I only have one question. Has this one come before us before?
This parcel?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Councilman Shekinah, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mr. Tyndall, you mentioned the Sabre noise compliance, right? What does that mean? Does that mean a homeowner is going to get information about all the noise that's they're gonna hear all the time with the helicopters, or what does
It's
that
a
mean?
note that goes on the plat. We don't go as far to say when you close, you have to get information, but it is a note that goes on the plat that says this is in an area that is subject to an increased, aircraft noise and other training noises. And then depending where they are in that noise zone, they have to do some additional insulation in the roofs or the windows to make sure that it's quieter inside. But this should be outside of that 75 or 70 decibel area. That happens more towards, what's the name of that subdivision just out in the county off 374 there? No, it's a newer one, but that one's more in the noise zone out there. Or if you go further out Lafayette Road,
Right.
that one is more in that area. But this is on the edge of that area, so because it's within the mile of Sabre Field, they have to have that note on the plat. And, you know, future buyers, if they look at the plat, will be aware of what's going on.
So that causes the developers to do more work, then, you're talking about installation, more installation and
It's
things
a
like
little
that,
more
right?
work, yeah.
Okay, cool, thank you, Mayor.
Let's hope they read their plat. Councilman Marquis, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you. In here it says it's to divide a lot, to divide into 3 lots, so I take it 3 single-family homes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Clont, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Tindall, what is the smallest lot size per home?
In R3, that would be a 30-foot wide lot and 3,500 square feet, so 30 by 120-ish, give or take. This parcel is about 100 feet wide, so it has just enough room for 3 in a row.
So, like shotgun houses is what we're, tall and skinnies?
Tall, skinny, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Any more comment or question regarding this ordinance? Item B, ordinance 02, Mr. Tindall.
This is Planning Commission Case Z25, 2026. Applicant is OK Gutierrez. The agent is James Davis. This is right at 1 acre. Currently zoned R1 and requesting to go to C5 Highway and Arterial Commercial District. It's located on Tiny Town Road, approximately 440 feet west of Green Acres Drive and Tiny Town Road. It's currently a vacant grassland parcel. Did have some former structures on there, and it does have some driveway cuts onto Tiny Town Road. This is in Council Ward Number 1 in the North Clarksville planning area. The applicant's statement is to construct a commercial strip mall center. Here's our future land use map. It is in what we call the corridor commercial, so C5 would be an appropriate use in that orange area. And that closely aligns with the zoning out in the area. You do have a parcel there to the west that is still R1, but they are a legal non-conforming commercial business operating there. Here is Tiny Town looking toward Fort Campbell Boulevard and the property on the right. And you can see one of the curb cuts there. And there it is, a pretty level piece of land. And this is looking eastbound and into the property. And there's 2 of the driveways that are on site. A traffic assessment was required and received and accepted by the Planning Commission and the Street Department. No other departments had comments or concerns. This is of note in the Tiny Town Design Overlay in the Fort Campbell Gateway Subdistrict for the Design District. Staff does recommend approval. The request is consistent with the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan, and the proposed C5 highway and arterial request aligns with the corridor commercial future land use and is in character with the development pattern of the area. The Planning Commission also recommends approval.
Councilman Holloman, you're recognized. Okay. Councilman Chandler, you're recognized.
Could you back up to the first photograph, please?
That one.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Just, let me look at it just a second. I think we're at the point, especially in this area, we need to be careful of adding stuff to this. I'm sitting here looking at this picture, and I see on both sides of the road, strip malls. I, just by sheer chance, drove this today to go to the little Korean store, and it was 11:30 maybe, and when I went to pull out to go back toward Fort Campbell Boulevard, traffic was god awful.
And, you know, I'm all for growth, but smart growth. And when we start just keeping on and adding these little things, eventually, we're gonna wake up one morning and we can't get out of the driveway because traffic is backed up so far. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Peters, you're recognized.
Mr. Tindall, this one's been before us before, has it not?
No, nearby in the area, at the intersection of Green Acres has been, about 4 parcels to the east. You saw
Okay.
that about a year and a half ago.
Yeah, I remember the citizens were in arms about building anything there before because of that curve and all that. So, okay, thank you.
Councilman Holloman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. So if you drive down Wilma Rudolph, I've said this in the past, just look at all the egress and ingress points, the entrance and exits. You know, we just keep loading them up with different commercial businesses, and then we got all these people coming in and out, going everywhere. And on top of that, I think Clarksville's pretty tired of having strip malls. I mean, like, just look at our city. We bulldozed Moss's, which was like a cultural thing. What, Poor Man's Country Club, was it? The place everybody thought was a putt-putt place, or at least I did growing up as a kid. That's going to be bulldozed. Like we destroyed our city, and we're replacing it with just nothing but crap, just for nothing but greed. Like this, it just drives me crazy. Like that's all anyone ever thinks about is just greed. Our entire society is so screwed up. We're at war with Iran. You look at what's going on in Europe. Churches being burned, women are getting raped by the immigrant invaders.
Okay,
All we're worried about is making money, and so a few percentage of people at the top can make millions of dollars, and that's what we're here for. So that's what I'll focus on. All right, thank you.
Councilman Streetman,
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Tyndall, it's currently zoned R1, so it can be developed as it is with houses there, correct?
Yeah, a few. 1 acre would provide 2 to 3 parcels on that property.
I wasn't sure if that was what my question was gonna be, was exactly how many you could have on there. And of course, would they each have their own driveway?
That would have to go through TDOT. They may have to share a driveway. They do have 2 existing cuts, so they may get to retain those for the houses. But I don't know. TDOT hasn't reviewed this. They don't review zoning changes.
Okay, like I said, I was only asking as it currently stood with the number of houses that could go there and the number of cuts you would have. All right, thank you, sir.
Councilman Clout, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Tindall, I was at the RPC when you guys talked about this. Was there any community outreach, any letters against this?
Yeah, we send letters for everything to everyone within 100 feet. So across the street, behind it, and next to it. Would say this one probably got about a dozen letters sent out to the neighbors around it. And then, of course, the sign on site.
Oh, yes, sir. Did you get any information back?
No, we didn't receive any comments. And as you saw at the meeting, there was no one to speak either for or against this.
No, yes, sir.
I'm sorry, the agent was there to speak for this.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any more comment or question regarding this ordinance? We're ready for item C, ordinance 3. Mr. Tindall, please, sir.
This is case Z26, 2026. Application of Harris Homes Holdings LLC. This is 2.49 acres, currently zoned AG agricultural and requesting for R5 residential district. It's a parcel of land located at the southeast intersection of Gibbs Lane and Trenton Road. It's currently a single-family residential home site with several mature trees on site. This is in Council Ward number 12. And it's in the St. Bethlehem planning area. The applicant's statement is for townhomes, which is what R5 is for. And here's the future land use map. You'll see the future suburban neighborhood. Again, suburban neighborhood on major corridors could be appropriate for multifamily housing such as this. And here's the current zoning map. You do have a large finished multifamily project there on what is that, McGee and Zinnia drives there. You do have some other R4 that's zoned and not built in the area. The rest is mostly single-family subdivisions or large lot home sites. Here's the photo looking up Trenton Road toward exit 1. The site is on the right. Gibbs Lane is just beyond it. That is not the home that's on the site. That's on the neighboring property across the intersection. Here's the current home on site. This is from Gibbs Lane looking up to the property with Trenton Road at your back. And this is Gibbs Lane looking down towards, I believe it's called the Villas of Union Hall or something like that. There's a subdivision down there. And this is looking from that same position back up to Trenton Road, approximately at the back of the property line for this property. Important to note here, the access would be from Gibbs Lane and not from Trenton Road for this property due to its limited frontage on Trenton Road. And during site plan, we would work with the street department on putting that in a good place. And here's the current intersection. And then looking the other way towards Needmore Road. The tree line is approximately the property line. Department comments. Gas and Water said a gravity sewer main extension would be required. Street departments, we did get a traffic assessment on it. The access at Gibbs Lane was an E. Road improvements and access to Gibbs Lane would be needed with a site plan. No other department comments or concerns, and the school system provided their comments of their schools in the nearby Oakland Northeast Middle, Northeast High School District. Historic estimates would put this at 30 units. Staff recommends disapproval. The request appears to be in agreement with the future land use designation of suburban neighborhood for the location. However, it does not align with the overall goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan as it relates to transportation infrastructure. The Clarksville-Montgomery County Comprehensive Plan establishes a framework in which land use, transportation, and infrastructure are intended to be coordinated, and the development is supposed to be available or supported by the availability of adequate infrastructure. This proposal appears premature given the current capacity limitations in the Trenton Road corridor. By access ordinance, the entrance to this site would be Gibbs Lane. Gibbs Lane is a substandard 16-foot wide road. The road is adjacent to areas of steep topography, making improvements such as widening, sidewalks, etc., difficult to construct. Additional study and assessments will be necessary to determine the feasibility of those required improvements, and the Planning Commission also recommends disapproval.
Thank you. Councilman Clout, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I should have asked this the other day, and I apologize for that. What is the grade of Gibbs Road? I know it's steep.
I'd have to get back to you. We can measure that on the computer, but I don't know off the top of my
And
head.
I'm not trying to play stump the chump with you, so please forgive me. I also agree with the RPC that this is not a good idea. Pulling out onto Trenton, either going in either direction is scary, depending on your time of day. That's all I have.
Yeah, it's a Billy Goat Bluff down there.
Yeah.
It's pretty steep.
Yeah.
Councilman Chandler, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, here we go again. Trenton Road. North end of Trenton Road is, we're sitting here pulling our hair out trying to figure out what we're gonna do about traffic. And we gotta be careful because this south end is gonna wind up in the same shape. It was obvious, extremely obvious, this past budget session, that people want to complain about traffic, but they don't want to spend the money to fix the traffic. And all that does is put the city in a quagmire. There's no way in the world that we need to support this. It's just absolutely ridiculous for us to continue loading up the same road year after year. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Lovato, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. With this coming off of, I understand that there's not going to be access to Trenton, but have they addressed any concerns with TDOT when TDOT starts to widen Trenton? How would that affect future eminent domain or anything like that?
Well, they'd have to set aside the right-of-way that's in the the widening of Trenton Road plans currently.
Yeah, this is in phase 2 or 3 of the right-of-way acquisition, but if this should go forward with an approval, we would get TDOT's setback they need, and then that would be reflected on the site plan, and then the setbacks would be set off that point, and we would just reserve that for future acquisition. So we wouldn't be putting, say, parking or a structure in an area that would have to be acquired in the future.
Okay, and I'll reiterate what the councilman from Ward 4 said. I appreciate the RPC staff and commission recommending disapproval on this because Trenton just can't take any more. And with the future plans, we do need to be cautious. I would just like to say, it is especially aggravating, not in this situation, but when we hear things like, well, that's gonna be addressed in the site plan. So it almost has a feel of, and I understand that this came with a disapproval, but when we hear things like that, it's almost like, well, trust us, it's gonna be fixed in the future. So I don't know what we as a governing body can do to change that, where we get more information on the front end before we start voting on this, but that's all I have. Again, I appreciate the recommendation for disapproval on this. Thank you.
Mr. Tyndall, conditional zoning, does that touch on that at all? What the councilman just said, providing more information at the time of rezoning? If they do this, then we,
Contract zoning, I think the council can ask for information if it's pertinent to making their decision. You got to be careful when you get into a quid pro quo situation where you are requesting certain improvements, dedications, or other things for a rezoning. But if you needed, say, and you've done it in the past, I think you asked for an additional traffic study on Tiny Town once, completely within your realm. If we did not supply one already and you want one, go. Drainage study. If it's something pertinent to making your decision, I think you're within your right as a legislative body to ask for that. To ask for additional right-of-way improvements or set-asides, that's where you start crossing that line, I believe.
I know she wasn't going that direction, but just, our
And
hands
we
are
can
kinda
also look
tied.
at the rules too, in the zoning process. Is there more information on the front end that's needed than that we're getting already, so that we can forward that information? But between us and the street department, I think we do get what we need from our desk to make a decision, but sometimes that doesn't answer all the questions.
Councilman Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Tyndall, one of the things that I think you mentioned in the informal meeting when we were talking regarding Gibbs Lane, because that was when I asked the question of, well, how does it route around, that there could potentially be a change to it being a one-way only.
Yeah, we talked to the street department before the department review meeting every month, and we talked about this one quite a bit. Everything from abandoning Gibbs Lane to making it possibly one-way in or out. We have not talked to the fire department about that yet. It's a little premature to talk about that, but we would, if this does pass, have to talk about what does the future of Gibbs Lane look like. You do have 3 city roads that act as a better bypass. Those are wide, almost 30-foot wide city roads that get back to that subdivision you can see just off to the east. Gibbs Lane is a cut through for that subdivision, but it's not desirable, as you could understand, in certain weather or at certain times. It's quite narrow.
No, like I said, I'm not for this regardless, but I did want to just ask that question since you had mentioned that in the meeting.
Councilman Brown, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Tyndall, I kind of relate to just all the previous speakers. As this is, on Trenton Road, which this parcel's not in my ward, but it's pretty dang close. And I have had some calls about it, and, the way Trenton Road is right now, we just have difficulty trying to add more traffic to it. But if this was to go to R4, it's like 2.5 acres, how many houses could they get there? I imagine they'd all have. to
Right
go to
about the
Gibbs
same
Lane.
thing, 28 to 32 units, just like R5. The densities are very close in those 2 districts.
Yeah, I don't like that many either. Okay, thank you.
Any more comment or question regarding this ordinance? Councilman Lovato?
Yeah, I just want to go on the record that I will not support any rezoning request on this. That's all.
And Mayor, I'll just let the council know, a lot of times we get calls from developers, speculators, landowners, and I will tell you for well over the last year, anyone who brings anything on Trenton Road to us ahead of time, we're like, probably not the right time to do this. Let's see how TDOT's moving. I believe we're in a situation, and not many of you were here when Warfield Boulevard was just wrapping up. The previous group of city council who was here kind of put a temporary hold on all rezonings out there till Warfield was improved from the bridge all the way up to Ted Crozier Boulevard. When that was done, then they said, okay, we're ready to rezone things again, and they did pretty immediately. People were bringing back things, and I think that's kind of, we're in a similar position for most of Trenton Road as well.
All right, we're now ready for item D, ordinance 4.
Okay, there's a lot to go over here, and I'll try to be brief. This is you're seeing 2 of the 3 parts to make this happen, and it requires all 3 parts to make this happen. This is about 1.5 years worth of work to look at the downtown historic overlay, or what we call the H1. And then you also have the downtown urban design overlay. I just call that the downtown overlay from here on out. As a matter of background, the historic overlay, which on this map is in the light yellow hatching, the Regional Historic Zoning Commission and those overlays were established in 1985 by city ordinance. And then in 2000, the Central Business Improvement District and the Downtown Overlay District, which you see in blue mostly, was adopted in 2000. The Common Design Review Board was established in 2016. Previously, that downtown code up until 2016 was administered by the Code Department and the Two Rivers Company. The downtown overlay was expanded a little further to the east down College Street in 2023 when the Vulcan PUD was being rezoned, and that was to give that and the properties around it because we expected redevelopment with that PUD development. Even though it's gotten a little cold recently, if that picks up again, we expect that area to redevelop, and we wanted it to have its be in the design district to respect the investment that would go on in that area. The yellow hatched H1 districts have largely remained the same since 1985. There might be a parcel here or there that has either been added to or removed from the district at the owner's request here or there, but it's largely stayed the same. And I'll show you a map here. Yes, it's that map. So the last bullet here. In 1976, the National Register of Historic Places recognized something called the Clarksville Architectural District. And that's the next map I'll show you. The only portion of that district that's in an H1 is Public Square, which is this side of Public Square where you're sitting right now. And this is the map from 1974 showing 76, showing the Clarksville Architectural District, which is part of the National Register of Historic Places. And you'll see it takes in Franklin Street from 2nd and 3rd Street down, all the way to Public Square over to Main Street. It's called Legion Street there. It was not called Strawberry Alley back then, but now that's also Strawberry Alley, all the way down to the County Courthouse and the Customs House Museum. Besides that row of buildings on the left side of this map, none of this is in our locally recognized H1 historic district, and probably should be. So one of the 2 things we're asking for you tonight is, excuse me, is support to expand the historic district across all of that 1976 and nationally recognized Clarksville Architectural District, as well as some other historic properties. So we call this the Y map. Why did we do this? The properties that are in sort of that peach color there are the properties from that previous map we just showed you, and that makes up the majority of this request through Franklin Street, Strawberry Alley, and others. If the properties are in purple, that means our 2020 historic survey recommended that they be added to the historic district. The church, the Madison Street Methodist Church in green is already on the National Register, but also not in our historic local district. And then properties in blue are properties that are considered contributing to the historic properties of Clarksville, also recognized in our 2020 report. So it makes a nice boundary, but what I also like about this, it ties the Public Square, the Main Street Historic District, and the Dog Hill District into one larger district. The idea behind this is that we believe our current rules, where we have the downtown urban overlay and historic district, are very close. And we've had about 3 lawsuits over the last 8 years regarding the historic and the overlay districts. And the last judge basically said, if you want it in a historic district, put it in a historic district. And it was for a property that was in the downtown district. Our current downtown overlay almost acts as a de facto historic district, and it probably shouldn't. And that was the judge's advice to us, if I'm remembering right. I think that was part of it. The part that you're not going to see that was already adopted by the Planning Commission and the Historic District is our guidelines. We got a $30,000 grant from Tennessee Historic Commission to hire a consultant to do this. Currently, our design guidelines are contained in chapters 9.5 of the city ordinance. It's actually suggested that you don't put your guidelines in codification as an ordinance, but you instead adopt it as a design guideline policy. So this past week, the Planning Commission and the Historic Commission and Common Design Review Board have adopted these guidelines pending if this passes. If it doesn't pass, we have an adopted guidelines that just sits there. If it passes, the ordinance does, it activates the guidelines. Again, what the guidelines do is to, again, provide some big separation between the historic districts, which are largely going unchanged. We're not making the historic districts harder. We're just keeping them at the standard. But what we're doing is making it a little easier to develop in the downtown urban design overlay without holding them to some historic standards. The best example I can give here is back to the map. You'll notice that map covers Two Rivers Mall, Riverside Drive, College Street, all the way down to Crossland. We're holding properties that are redeveloping on Riverside Drive to the same standards that they are on Franklin Street. And we don't feel that's fair and has actually caused some properties to forego investment over the last couple decades, we believe. So we think by keeping some design standards, very similar to the Madison Street design overlay, or now the Fort Campbell overlay, but specific to downtown, will promote a little easier development there while making sure that our historic properties are protected like they should be. So here's the actual map of the area for the record. It does not change the CBD zoning. All these properties are currently zoned CBD or are government-owned properties. It's just putting the H1 designation on top of that. So Mayor, I'm just going to talk about the zoning case and the Z01 case after this, if it's okay, because they're so tied. The ordinance case after this, Z01 2026 for us, repeals and replaces chapters 9.3 and 9.5 of the city zoning ordinance. It actually makes it a lot smaller because now we put all the pictures and all the guidelines are now in here instead of being codified into city code. We initiated it last year with the Planning Commission. We did get some pushback initially, but I will say we had multiple meetings. We've had at least 3 public sessions on this. We've held private sessions where we've let the local business owners and property owners come to the Planning Commission, talk to the consultants. We've circulated this back out to the community. Again, we received that grant. City Legal has reviewed the ordinance portion of this, and really that's been a good help because it's provided a much more rigid framework. So if we do get sued again, it's going to help them have a lot more leg to stand on than we have in the past. And then major changes from the current regulations. Again, it creates the framework to adopt the guidelines. The adopted guidelines do provide a clearer way forward for development and redevelopment downtown. It loosens those regulations. You're not often going to hear a planning commission talk about reducing regulations, but this one does in the downtown urban design overlay while upholding those historic district standards. There's a clearer decision-making, especially for minor improvements, so you don't have to go to the board. It makes it a quicker process, done through staff level or administrative level. Something the previous document didn't do, it defines what a contributing or non-contributing historic structure is. We actually also included an economic hardship appeal because that's one of the reasons we had to go to court was economic hardship. So we created sort of a return loop where if the Historic Commission denies it and someone says, well, I've got an economic hardship, they can reapply. There's a whole list of documents. They've got to get an appraisal and show why they can't either bring it up to standards, and demolition is the only option. But it provides either a second option before going right to the courts and letting a judge who doesn't have an interest in the property review it. We added some demolition by neglect. That was a big ask by the current Regional Historic Commission members. We don't have anything on the record. It's a start. Again, the board doesn't have subpoena powers or citing powers, only the code department does, but it does start to set the framework that if a property remains long neglected, the Historic Commission can ask them to come before the board and answer some questions. And then we also update the chapter per the vesting laws for certificates of appropriateness. Our previous section made it sound like a COA lasts indefinitely, and this should only last project to project, so we've updated that as well. Again, there's a lot of parts again, in there. You have the guidelines, the zoning ordinance update, and then the H1 expansion map. All three need to really work together. If the ordinance is adopted but not the map, it does open the historic properties that I just showed you up to some opportunity to do some things to them are not so good. So I would say if you don't want to adopt the map, don't adopt the ordinance. If you don't want to adopt the ordinance, don't adopt the map. So it's kind of a package deal, but it is two different ordinances before you. With that, I'll be happy to answer all the questions.
Councilman Streetman.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Tyndall, a couple of things. One, in regard to the demolition by neglect, and again, it's a start. Can you talk about a little bit why that demolition by neglect can be so detrimental, specifically looking at some of these properties that are now included in this on Franklin Street?
Well, Franklin Street especially, it's like a bunch of dominoes holding each other up. And if a property owner allows, and by demo by neglect, we're meaning the roof is not on there properly, it's leaking, there is, the windows are busted out, and there's water intrusion, which is then weakening the structure. So by neglecting the property, you're in essence getting to a point where you're going to have to demolish it. On Franklin Street especially, if one of those buildings should go, you put the surrounding buildings in some precarious situations. So that's one area where demo by neglect, just from the surrounding property owners, is of importance. But we have a lot of other properties in the downtown area where they are either in the district or they're considered contributing because they're maybe from 1900. And nothing's been done to them for 20 or 30 years. The mold's growing on it, the windows are busted out. This gives the board an opportunity to draw attention to it, and then through the code department, ask them to at least dry them in, keep them dry inside, make sure the roof's on, make sure the windows are either boarded up or glass, and try to maintain those properties as long as possible till someone comes along who wants to put the time and money into them.
Well, I know the reason I was asking that is that's, a source of concern I've heard about from some of those specifically in these areas, the concern for their property based on the demolition by neglect for others. Also, I know you touched on this a little bit, but, well, first I'll say, we did receive an email today that stated that this is not going to help downtown and that this is actually going to increase the burden of ownership by increasing restrictions and oversight on building owners. But what we just talked about, really it's keeping within these properties. It's not changing the zoning. It's still the same CBD. And in fact, in the areas that aren't this, it's relaxing things.
That's how I read it. We are not strengthening the H1 rules. We're keeping them the same. Little clarifications here and there so that it's clear what the intentions were, where we've had some gray areas in the past, but we're not saying something's harder than it is currently. What is currently harder is building in the downtown overlay. That's going to get a lot easier because of some of the reduction in more staff approvals, allowing you to do more stuff when right now we hold the buildings 360. If you're doing anything to the building, you've got to come to the design board. Well, now it says if you can't see it from the road for whatever reason, it's behind a building, it's next to a building, and you can't see it, you don't have to follow the rules to go to the board. So we're trying to find ways with materials and with the process to make it a little easier to develop in the downtown overlay.
Well, and I know you mentioned this before, that when you first brought this forward, you had quite considerable pushback with it. But like you said, you worked with individuals directly in this area in order to be able to kind of bring the best product forward for all the committees as well as the council to be able to vote on.
Yeah, this was tabled the first time this came to the planning commission last year, and we said, all right, we got some more work to do, and we had some more group meetings. We met with the consultant. We actually sent, both times we did this, we sent a letter to all the downtown owners affected by the H1, as well as everyone within 100 feet. So just like a zoning case, we notified everyone the same.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Councilman Lovato?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sorry if you already touched on this. I'm just trying to wrap my head around what we're doing. When we're talking about demolition by neglect, I understand the objective here, but who is going to be responsible for identifying those and going through the process of fixing it? Is it going to be our Building and Codes Department or someone else?
The Building and Codes Department can already cite people for demo by neglect, but I believe it has to get to a point where it's really a public nuisance. This backs it up a little to say, before it gets to that point where it's a health or safety nuisance, we're gonna identify it. Our staff, a regional historic board member could bring it up at a meeting, or the public through See-Click Fix could probably bring it up as well.
Okay, so they're going to be the one to identify it, and then once that comes to you all, what is the process?
So the process, again, we don't have subpoena powers, but we would list it in the paper, post the property, and mail to the property owner and any tenant that they are asked to appear before the Regional Historic Commission at a certain time to answer questions on the property. If that goes without that, then it opens it up to the code department to be able to start to cite it where it's getting to the point of a public nuisance.
Okay, so at that point, it goes to the Building and Codes Department, and then they decide that demolition is required. Who does that, who does the work and who pays for it?
Well, I don't know if you haven't been demolishing historic buildings, but if it got to the point where it was a true health and safety matter, it would probably be turned over to abatement, but we would lean on the property owner to fix their own problem first.
I guess where my concern, where I'm going with this is I don't want to put more on the Building and Codes Department at this time. So I'd like to get Mr. Crosby's opinion on this, if he thinks that the workload would be amicable if this were to pass.
Do you want to ask him a question? Is that where we're going?
That was a question. I
Oh,
know
okay.
it's his birthday, and he's like, no, thank you.
Happy birthday.
You're calling me up to sing to me?
Yeah. Welcome to the Milkshake Club.
Thank you. No, I know Jeff and his team have worked really hard on this. This does give us some really good teeth that we don't have now. It doesn't add any bodies to our staff to do any more work that we aren't already doing, but it does give us a good way moving forward. If, this is a good tool for the toolbox. Whether we get to use it or not with the staff we have is to be determined, but this is a really good tool in the toolbox. It's really good for the end user as well. This was put together not only for us, but for the property owners as well, and it's good for both.
So I just want to reiterate my question. Is this going to require more staff and more funding on your part in the near future? Or do you think-
Yes. It always does though. So we need them anyway. So, but we have rules now.
Okay.
And the rules that we're enforcing now, this adds to them. This doesn't create anything new that we're, having to pull somebody in. This is not unfamiliar. This is additional rules, even some clarifying stuff in here that this is much needed.
Okay.
This will help protect some properties that don't have protections now.
That's all I have. Thank you for the
Thank you.
clarification.
Councilman Clonch?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Tyndall, I appreciate this, and I missed, you said this was adopted by the RPC, the Regional Historic District, and what was the third entity?
Oh, the Common Design Review Board.
Common Design Review Board. And then you also stated that you had how many town hall meetings, how many community engagements?
We had at least 3 where it was open to the entire public at the Planning Commission to talk to the consultants and our staff, and then we held, I can't even count, but we'll say probably a dozen small meetings with different groups of owners, whether it was single-family owners, Franklin Street owners, other owners that had individual concerns of their properties. But between us and the consultant, we met with them mostly about this document, make sure we had everything. And I'll tell you, even up to a month ago, people say we don't listen. we got an email from a local architect that said, would you consider metal awnings on the historic district? A lot of our buildings on Franklin Street have metal awnings. They actually hold up a lot better than the fabric awnings. And we made that change right before adoption. So, we did get feedback up until about 6 weeks ago or a month ago to make into this document. So we were having conversations with architects and landowners all throughout this process.
I'm gonna ask a really dumb question just for the record. This isn't new. You've been working on this for a long time. Community's been involved, businesses, residents, everybody.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Councilman Brown?
Thank you. Mr. Tyndall, just a question. On the designated in the H1, how many of these parcels are privately owned? Do you know offhand?
No, I'd have to get that back to you.
Because, I understand, like government buildings, some of the churches, but, my concern is what are we doing to these privately owned buildings, these businesses or individuals, what kind of burden are we putting on them to be in this H1 that might cost them some money?
I'll get back to my original point, which is nothing, because right now they're in the downtown urban design overlay, which is also very restrictive. And what we're trying to do here is if you have an H1 in the downtown district, again, that's the yellow is the H1 districts and the blue is the downtown district. So the H1 only makes up a smaller portion of the downtown district. When you're in the yellow areas, you apply the H1 overlay guidelines. When you're in the blue, you apply the downtown guidelines. Right now, those guidelines are so close in what they require for compliance that it is difficult to develop in the blue areas because you're held to almost a historic standard. What we're doing is keeping the H1 right here, but we're lessening the impact on the blue properties. That's my concern. If you adopt the ordinance but don't adopt the map, you are going to lessen the requirements on our Clarksville Architectural District, which would open them up to painting of all sorts of colors, potential demolition without coming to the board, and other things we don't want to see. So I think to answer your question, nothing's going to add anything to these properties. What we're in essence doing is for most of the properties in the blue, sans those 28 properties on Franklin Street and other streets, those rules are gonna stay the same when the H1 gets adopted over it.
Okay, so these ones that are being added to H1 shouldn't really affect them with more restrictions.
No, the restrictions will be very similar to what they see today if they were to do anything. It's just the properties in blue will get a little lessened.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and one thing I forgot to mention back to Councilman Streetman's point, we attend the monthly DCA meetings, which is the Downtown Cooperative Association, I think. I just call them the DCA, but we've circulated this through them the last couple months as well. We brought copies, and that represents a lot of the business owners and property owners as well. So we've tried to remain as engaged as possible through this whole process.
Mr. Tyndall, how many different boards and commissions touch this area? And can you name them for me? Because I swear, there's so many of them.
Yeah, I probably can't.
Okay.
You got your CBID, which really doesn't do anything yet, and that's contained in here. You've got your historic and your downtown, which is either gonna be your Common Design Review Board or your Regional Historic Commission there. And then the Planning Commission too would have to review anything they do. So it is quite a process. We're just trying to make that process a little easier for those properties in the blue.
So you're trying to strike a balance between preserving the historic structures without placing onerous regulations on the property owners so that if they need to refurbish, rehab a historic property, they can do that.
That's
Because
one
I've-
good way of putting it.
Well,
Yep.
it's the best way I know, but I've heard forever this process that we have, I've heard it referred to as the People's Republic of Downtown because it's so onerous and controlling. So does this help?
I believe it should. As you go through this document, you'll see on most of the pages, there's these colors, and it's either a H or a U. H means that if you're in a historic district, that's your guideline, and if you're in the U, it's the urban, downtown urban district. And though we've added more items in here, I think it provides more clarity. Like, this is everything from replacing windows to what kind of gutters you should use, but it's a lot clearer going forward. So you should be able to go to the board and say, I'm following your guidelines, approve me, as opposed to right now, it gets into a lot of gray area because the guidelines are not, they were prepared 26 years ago, and they needed it's one of the first things I noticed when I came here. We just got to it, delayed by COVID a little bit in there, and now we're getting it done thanks to the state grant. But I do think it's needed. Probably doesn't mean it's the end. I think it's a start. Being a guideline, it lets us amend this a lot easier than having to come back for 2 readings all the time. And it was also said by our consultant for the city council, if it's something you want to preserve, it should be in the H1 and not just in a downtown district. So that's why we've prepared this map, which was done by the Regional Historic Commission. So when this started, we actually gave them 3 maps, and this is the most extensive map. We started with a smaller one, a slightly bigger one, and then all these properties. And unanimously, they chose this map to present to you all as the first one. No doubt there's probably another couple parcels out there or properties out there that should probably be in the H1, and we'll address those in the future, but this we felt was the right start to get the, both the historic district and some of the other properties that were recommended in our historic survey into the H1 now. Protect them like they should be, like they currently are, and then work on other properties going forward.
So next week when we come to vote, it's a package deal or nothing, right?
I would say so. Again, if you adopt the ordinance but not the map, you open up downtown these properties in specific to some ability to do things we don't want to see on those. If you adopt the map but not the ordinance, it doesn't change too much for anybody. But I would ask your support on both of them. I think it's a positive way forward, and it allows us to really bring this into the 20th century.
Councilman Streetman?
Thank you. I actually have 2 questions. One is for Mr. Tyndall. One of the things you talked about was, of course, currently the way it is, we have the same restrictions on your historic buildings and those buildings as we do on Riverside Drive. In your opinion, do you believe that has definitely had an effect on the cleaning up and the improvement or development of Riverside Drive?
Yes, it's definitely one of the 2, that and the floodplain issue on Riverside. But those are probably the 2 of the biggest issues. As you've seen, some of these drive-throughs have come through, and we have to put them through the same process to build a drive-through commercial or a small commercial building on Riverside Drive. It's the same process as building a historic building on 6th Street or University Avenue.
Well, I know there's people from the public that would like to see things even more than just fast food being offered there, between whether it's sit-down restaurant or more preferably, a grocery store that could go along there. So again, going to your opinion, do you think that this could help move that process along? I realize there's other factors that go into all of that, including rooftops, that type of thing. But will this help that? And do you think it might help get more rooftops in the downtown area as well?
To answer your first question, is it going to spur the redevelopment? No. Does it definitely reduce red tape and one of the hurdles? Absolutely. And I think government these days is about getting rid of red tape where we can, and that was a big push through this process. These guidelines do not apply to single-family homes. I want to make that clear. That was asked at the Common Design Review Board. Only if it's a historic home in a historic district does it apply. In which, in this district, only the Madison Street Historic District, Dog Hill, and Emerald Hill have some single-family homes in there. Could this lead to additional rooftops downtown? For sure. We've increased the height restrictions in some of these areas by a full floor or 2. And with the guidelines being easier to apply for non-historic properties, it gives them a little more leeway in style of construction, materials, and that kind of thing.
Okay,
Which makes construction cheaper.
From us having conversations before that one of the things I think is best for our immediate downtown areas when you have business on the bottom, residential on top, and then that all benefits one another within the area. My second question, and not sure if it's really a question for you, probably more a question for Mr. Bittner, because of the fact that it would be best that both of these items either go through or not go through. As the person that will be making the motion for these, can I actually take these 2 items up together?
Can I answer that? I'd recommend no, because one is actually a zoning map change, and then one's a zoning ordinance change, and they both require a public hearing, so I would
Well, the
say,
public hearing happens earlier.
okay. Then
We
I'll
do
leave
the
that up
pub-
to you
For
then.
zoning, the public hearing is completely, we go out of regular session into the public hearing and go through each of the individual items,
Mm-hmm.
then we vote on them.
Yes, you can. Unless I'm overruled by the attorney. It's not your birthday, though.
A motion to consider both together, yeah.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
All right. Any more comment or question regarding these two ordinances?
All right. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to call me or Brent Clemens in our office. I know this is a lot to digest. There's a lot on these slides. If you need anything provided electronically or just want to talk about this a little more, please reach out.
Okay, we're ready for item F, Resolution 5.
Mayor, I'll take up Resolution 5 and 6 together. This is another annexation. You saw an annexation approximately 2 or 3 months ago for the St. Thomas when they acquired the 100 acres adjacent to this to the west. This is also part of the Boyd and Larkins family. They just had not closed on this parcel by then. So this is a 5-acre remnant of that off of Little Hope Road that would be added to the St. Thomas Ascension Hospital master plan. Per the most recent version I've seen, this parcel would be probably used for the county EMS building, some parking, some drainage, and a bit of a roadway. So really no addition to anything we've seen in the past annexation. It's just going to add to the entire campus here and really round out the city limits on Little Hope Road and to the north there. They are requesting a zone change from ag to C2. That does also agree with the C2 that was put on it for the hospital. That allows them to do a hospital and medical office buildings all together. And there was no department comments or concerns. CTS did reiterate their comment from the previous plan of service of needing to expand future bus service when the hospital is built. That is a requirement of theirs. There's the map. Future land use parcels. There's the current zoning map with the annex C2 to the west. And these do require a public hearing next week. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions about these two resolutions? Councilman Brown?
So, Mr. Tindall, looking at the dotted line for the city limits, it looks like it comes down one side of Little Hope Road, then goes back over and gets to the church. So is Little Hope Road is gonna stay county then?
Yes, sir.
In between two city parcels?
Just down by the church. So just north of Living Hope Baptist Church is county. The Slate Farm is still in the county unincorporated area. But the decision was when we annexed both the parcel, the little C2 corner there that's currently being built with some townhomes and the church, the city didn't want to take just like 500 feet of Little Hope Road, so we've left it in the county. County will have a say in the review of this, whether they need road improvements or all, but it's gonna remain under county jurisdiction. It's good practice to leave full segments of roads and not cut city jurisdiction like halfway down a road.
Right, but, I mean, to me, it's kinda like what we did that. The house on the left side of the road would be in the city, the business on the right side of the road would be in the city, but the road itself is not going to be.
None of these, except for that C2 parcel and the church is addressed off of 76, so there's not too many curb cuts here, I guess,
Right.
where we have that situation. It doesn't affect addressing either. Everyone out there is gonna be a 37043 address anyway.
But it just affects who's gonna have to maintain that road and, you know, these two, the residents and the church are gonna be calling the street department saying, hey, our road out here is messed up, and then it's gonna get routed around, and, you know, I could just see some confusion down the road.
It's called cost avoidance. We're trying to avoid spending the money.
I
out there.
understand. That was just my only concern. I mean,
I like
I
clean
don't-
lines too, but no, this is
Yeah.
one that we decided to keep in the county.
Any other comment or question regarding these two resolutions? Mr. Tindall, we're on to Resolution 7.
Yes, annually, the Planning Commission receives the city's capital improvement plan as part of TCA 133104. The Planning Commission can advise city and county municipal legislative bodies with respect to the formulation of public improvement programs and the financing of such programs. I will say Ms. Wilcox this year provided a 10-year CIP. I think we've been urging in the past for a little bigger view because previous CIPs would just stack everything at the 5+ year. And it's like, well, we don't know what 6 means. And six years can roll on you pretty quick. So I will give her lots of credit for making that a much broader look and pacing the development out so that there's a clear 10-year view of what types of improvements the city needs to take on, especially for years 6 through 10. So thank you for that, City Finance Department. Planning Commission staff and Planning Commission reviewed this. This year we're providing no comments or suggestions, but we do look forward to working with Ms. Wilcox in the future to refine this newer document going forward next year. So this does not require a public hearing. It's simply a resolution. It does allow the city to say that you do have an adopted CIP, and that probably goes towards some grant funding or some other state requirement here and there. So bit of a formality, but we're happy to turn that back to you.
Thank you. Any comments, questions about Resolution 7? All right. Thank you,
I believe
Mr.
that's it.
Tyndall.
Thank you very much. Again, with any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us.
All right, we're ready for the consent agenda. Madam Clerk?
All items in this portion of the agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the council and may be approved by one motion. However, a member of the council may request that an item be removed for separate consideration under the appropriate committee report. Ordinance 93, 2025-26, second reading, an ordinance amending the operating budgets for the fiscal year 2026-27 for the Clarksville Parking Commission, a proprietary fund. Ordinance 94, 2025-26, second reading. An ordinance authorizing the donation of real property from the city of Clarksville, Tennessee to Montgomery County, Tennessee for the purpose of greenway development along Matlock Road. Ordinance 95, 2025-26, second reading. An ordinance amending the zoning code and map of the city of Clarksville, application of youth realty for a zone change on a parcel of land located on the eastern frontage of Professional Park Drive, 1,850 plus or minus feet south of the intersection of Dunlop Lane and Professional Park Drive from O1 Office District to C2 General Commercial District. Ordinance 96, 2025-26, second reading. An ordinance amending the zoning code and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Sean Robertson for a zone change on property consisting of 2 contiguous parcels on the southern frontage of Dover Road, 520 plus or minus feet east of the Dover Road and High Point Drive intersection from R1 Single Family Residential District to C5 Highway and Arterial Commercial District. Resolution 2, 2026-27, a resolution approving a certificate of compliance for sale of wine in a food store at Chum's Discount Tobacco located at 811 Peters Mill Road, and the adoption of minutes from June 11th, June 16th, June 22nd, July 2nd, July 6th, and July 9th.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any comment from council regarding the consent agenda? We're now ready for the Finance Committee report. Chairman Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I apologize. Resolution 64, 2025-26, a resolution of the City Council of Clarksville, Tennessee, rescinding the city's obligation to pay 20% of the division of 1/2 of the proceeds of the additional tax levied by resolution of the County Court of Montgomery County, Tennessee, as earmarked for instructional salaries in the county's general purpose school fund and for other purposes. The Finance Committee didn't really vote in favor of disapproval. It failed for a lack of a motion. Mayor Pitts, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, I'll take this one. This resolution that's before you will simply allow us to recapture a portion of the revenue stream that was put into place in 1977. At that time, the voters approved an increase in our local option sales tax, and the city and the county in a separate agreement allowed the school system to keep an additional 20% of that increase. With our city budget constrained, obviously, by a lack of revenue to support some basic operations and the growth of the county and school system budgets, I felt it was time to bring this matter to you for consideration. The additional funding would equal approximately $3.4 million per year that will help offset the rising cost of us doing business in our city. It is not a rejection of the public education system, nor are we pulling the rug out from under their budget, as some have suggested, some in the public, not on the council. For your information, the city contributes about 80% of the sales taxes we collect in the city to our school system. Most of it prescribed by state law, but then obviously a voluntary election to give some more. We're also giving 50% of our liquor by the drink taxes that were collected in the city to the county. You recall that we appropriated $6 million to build sidewalks around schools in response to a necessary change that the school system made because of a shortage of bus drivers regarding students walking to and from school. We continue to deliver on that promise. There are sidewalks being constructed as we speak near St. Bethlehem Elementary School and Northwest High School. We also purchased new software to allow us to upgrade our school zone signals, and we continue to provide school crossing guards to every school inside the city limits. So let's talk about the merits of this if you want, but I thought it was time to kind of bring this to you and for us to consider it. And so there it is. Councilman Lovato.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say I do support this measure, but I have some concerns because I want to make sure that we do it the appropriate way. This was voted on in 1977, by the way, 10 years before I was born, so this is a long time. So, it's time to it is time to revisit this and what that money is allocated for. To the other council members, I've gone back and forth with Mr. Bittner quite a bit about what's appropriate and what's not as far as the next steps. And with your permission, Mayor, I'd just like to drag him to the podium so he can get everyone caught up to speed as well.
Okay, you're being dragged to the podium, Mr. Bittner.
It's not even my birthday.
Not even your birthday.
Sorry, yeah, no milkshakes left. One of the things that I've been bringing up is putting it on the ballot because that's where it started. But you've been in contact with MTAS, and as it reads, this is not appropriate to put on the ballot. Can you just clarify that?
Correct. The right to hold an election does not exist absent an express grant of power by the legislature. So to get it on the referendum, you have to be under a statutory grant. So you would have to find something under Tennessee law that would grant a referendum without, possibly, as we discussed today, would be a local sales tax increase. And then perhaps you put on the budget that way.
Okay. Because we have we have a copy of the referendum, we have some minutes from 1977, and we have the ordinance, but we do not actually have a copy of that contract yet, correct?
That's correct. The resolution of the county and the resolution of the city both direct that a contract be executed, but the contract that was executed, if it was ever executed, we don't know, because it cannot be located in the city records or the county records.
Okay, so my concern is if this council were to pass this as is next week, and the county and the school board do not agree, and we're going to assume that they don't agree, and they decide to take this to court, that $3.5 million could be locked up in probate until a judge makes a decision, correct?
It could be locked up, but not necessarily probate, but that's a different thing. But it could be that the payment has gone to the trustee, and the trustee would just pay us everything but the 20%, and then that 20% would be escrowed. I think this came up prior in, I want to say 1980s or something maybe. Where we had a dispute over this in the past, and I think that the money was held, the disputed money was held. So it could be that the disputed money is escrowed until there's a resolution of it.
And that could be years. So for quite some time, neither the school system nor the city would be able to use those funds until a judge made a decision. That I would have to get back to you, but I think the money would be escrowed
So whether or not we could use it, if it's disputed, I think if it's escrowed, I don't think that the money would be released until there's a final decision. I expect that the matter would be tried in the civil circuit court here in Montgomery County, then I think it would be appealed to Nashville by whichever party lost. And if the money were escrowed, then I think it would be held that long. How long that would be, it could be 1 or 2 years, or until either party settles the matter.
Okay, so if there's an amendment that puts a future date on this, what would happen to the funds? Because technically, we're not holding it from the school for 1 to 2 years, whatever that amendment might look like. Would it still be escrowed?
What would the future amendment look like? I mean, what is your amendment? So are you saying you'll stop payments and?
Correct. So stop payments were in 2026, let's say 2028 for cool math.
That, I guess that would depend on the county mayor and what they chose to do, if they were going to contest that or if they were just going to consider that as adequate notice and plan accordingly.
I guess what I'm trying to prevent is if this passes next week, that immediately money is going to be locked up, and this is taxpayer dollars, that's going to be locked up and it's not going to be able to be utilized in anyone's budget. But I'm asking if we put a future effective date of a couple of years into the next couple of years, that money would not be escrowed. Am I making sense or? No?
Correct. I don't think the dispute would be ripe for that. So that money, if it wasn't going to be stopped for 2 years, I don't think that the court would escrow or hold that money back.
Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Thank you, Mr. Bittner. Councilman Chandler, for Mr. Bittner or just generally?
Just general.
Okay.
Everybody's heard me speak about this. And when this was passed, it was a totally and completely different time. If you'll notice, the wording was originally earmarked for teacher salary. So I'll guarantee you we're at least 4 times more teachers now than were here then. So what is $3.4 million going to do toward their salary? When I look at it, what would it do for the city? 3.4 million, 2.5 million for a fire truck. Ward 12 councilperson was right. It is taxpayers' dollars, but it's not your homeowners' dollars. It is everybody that buys something in this city for a year. That's where it comes from. I have a hard time giving this money when, like the mayor said, the amount of sidewalks that we have had to put in. And we didn't have to. I'm going to back up and take that back. We didn't have to, but we did. We saw where somebody needed help, and this city jumped in and helped. We pay for all of the school crossing. I mean, that is a large expense. You've got personnel, you've got uniforms, you've got benefits. And then the school zone lights and stuff, they're not free. And honestly and truth, and again, we didn't pull the rug out from anybody. We went through our budget process just exactly like the law required us to do. And so when we came to this, if you remember, I brought it up during budget, and that was a 5-cent reduction. There's no nice way to put this other than the city residents are double taxed. and I'm not trying to start a war between the city and the county, but the county people can come in here and use our parks, use anything in our recreation, and don't pay any city property taxes. You know, the best case scenario is we can have a uniformed government under one control, but we don't have that. And if you will remember when you took your oath of office, you took the oath to do what was best for the city of Clarksville. I've always been one of those people, when you spell it out in black and white and say, this is what you have to do, this is what you're supposed to do. And this board sitting up here, we all took an oath. Do what's best for the city of Clarksville. And I'll go back one more time. 3.4 million, 2.5 for a fire truck. And if we don't start counting every penny, then we're gonna wind up one day with fire ratings that are off the chart. And folks, it's time for us to do this. I'm sorry for rambling. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Brown, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. So I have a question. This 20%, was that part on the ballot?
No, that was not language. It was on the ballot, but it did say that the county and the city would enter into an agreement as to how that money would be used. And so the city and the county did, and it was dedicated to instructional salaries.
Okay. So the sales tax increase at that time was just, this is the sales tax increase and percentage is going to the school salaries? Because that's what I'm wondering, if that 20% was told to the people at that time, this is what you're voting on, to give that to the schools, I could see that needing to go back to a ballot. If that 20% wasn't, it was, this is what we're gonna give the schools, and then we just went and did an additional besides that.
Well, I stand to be corrected, but I don't think it's specified on the ballot measure. It was just an additional sales tax to support education.
Okay, and, going back to another thing, the residents outside the city, they don't pay property taxes, but they use a lot of the resources that we provide, but they do pay sales tax when they come into the city, whether they live, in the county, another state, another county. So that is where we get our money to help offset the property taxes. So I understand the need for it. My only thing is personally, if we're gonna remove it from the schools, I'd rather see it done, over several years, so that it's not a big hit at one time, for the school system. They know, all right, next year, we're only gonna get 15%. The next year, only 10%. That's just my thought of, that way it gives them more time to plan for it. So those are just my thoughts on it.
Councilman Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, my question actually would kind of be to you in regard to, it's similar to what he was stating, but knowing that, granted, I know that you talked before that you had already had the conversations with them, but they have already passed the school system's budget, the county's budget. Do you think if we put an effective date in there that started July 1, and I know we need the money, I don't disagree with that. I see both sides of the coin on every bit of this, and I know that our citizens are double taxed. But trying to get this to work out, because listening to the council person from Ward 12 and the concern of that money just being tied up and benefiting no one, do you think it would be something that if we were to set it as a July 1, so they were able to plan for that for next year, Do you think that's something that could get worked out between now and then so that we don't run into the situation that the council person from Ward 12 was talking about?
It's possible. Anything's possible. I mean, if someone were going to take $3.5 million away from us, I think we'd be lining up every attorney on the fourth floor to try to protect it, knowing how scarce resources are for us. And they are scarce, as we all know.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Clontz, you recognized?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I'm gonna hop on. First of all, 1977 was a great year.
Anything to do with your birth?
I wasn't born yet, but I know it was a great year.
Y'all are bragging over here. I'm
One year
telling you.
after that, 1 year after that. I guess my question would be, or I guess a statement, kind of in conjunction with Ward 12, Ward 10, and Ward 9, is, in the military, we used a word called interoperability. Is there, MoCo likes to talk a lot about all the great things that they do for us, and I've gotten poked in the eye quite a bit lately about MoCo and their infinite wisdom, and God bless their hearts. But the city of Clarksville does a lot of great things as well. We sat in this room for many, many hours to get to $1. I do believe that we do need the money back, just as everyone else has stated. I do not also want it to get locked up in some type of infinite box that we can't access. And the ability to do a tiered system where, and I also agree with you, sir, nobody wants to give up any money, but we do need it back. And what does that look like? With, the county and the city sitting down together to say, hey, we know you don't want it to take the money or to give us the money, but we need it back, to come up with a plan together, interoperability, working together, all of these things that they say, what does that look like? And I know that previously, sir, you had said that you had talked to the county mayor, but this is a real problem. And we want to work together, and I think that for the next generation, our kids and our grandkids, this is a moment of learning for all of us and moving the rocks forward.
Well, yeah, I did say that I had conversations and told the county government that we were considering it in March, and then in April said that we were going to move forward with it. But this revenue was not included, as we know, in our current city budget. So the mayor proposes and the council disposes. So I proposed this, and if you all want to put an amendment on there to stagger it or to delay the effective date, then that's the will of this body. But where we stand, we need the money.
No, understood.
We need the money to keep moving forward. I heard it said that, teachers aren't going to get the kind of raise that they deserve. And I agree. I'm for teachers getting all the money they can get. But we had to delay the increase of our city employee salary, a 3% salary increase, until January 9th. So if you look at an annualized basis, it's $0.015, 1.5%. That's not keeping pace with inflation.
No, yes, sir.
So, yeah, we can sit down and negotiate with them, but got to start somewhere.
No,
But
absolutely.
they know that we're serious, and they didn't take it lightly. And they're not bowing up their back. We may hear different in public comments, but they're not bowing up their back yet. But we need the money. And I'm leaving office in 5 months.
Right.
And I want to make sure that the city residents get what they deserve. They deserve a good school system, and they deserve a functioning city government. And we're functioning.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Councilman Peters?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a tough one, because like everybody says, people feel as though we don't want to support school systems when we do. But I'm going to say this. Somebody made a comment they don't want to start a war. I'm a former soldier. I'll start a war. County residents pay 0% property taxes for the city, but they use 100% of our infrastructure. Is that fair? You ask me, I say no. We go into the county, how often do people really go out to the county? We pay more than our fair share. What do we pay, $75, $80 million for schools this year? Oh, I support taking this money back. I mean, I challenge the next mayor Make it fair. Make the county come to some sort of agreement. Why are we as city residents paying 100% property tax to the county? I don't own no property in the county. I live in the city. I pay them $2.10. Why? Yet county residents pay us $1. It makes no sense to me. I just don't understand it. We ain't even talking about the wheel tax we pay. We're just talking about property taxes. We're talking about city taxes here, doing all these things. I don't understand who set this up the way that it's set up. We got sheriff's department, we got the police department. We got city council, we got county commissioners. We're all doing the same thing. What benefit does the city residents get from that? I'll start that war. I challenge the next mayor to do something about it. We need to fix it. Whoever the next mayor is, we need to fix it. It's unfair for the city. Maybe the city pay 50% of county taxes, I don't know. But we need to come up with something because it just ain't fair. And I get tired of reading in social comments that this council makes money hand over fist for our little buyouts. We get paid nothing but our salaries. That's what we get, right? So learn what you're talking about and what you're discussing up there. Learn that we do pay millions of dollars to the school system. It ain't the county footing the bill by themselves. I mean, everybody seems to think that the city does not participate in any way for the schools when you read these dumb comments on social media. Grow up, people. Learn what you're talking about before you make the comments. My name is Carlos Peters. You can call me anytime, and we'll talk about it. Like I said, I challenge the next mayor to make it right. That's all I got to say.
Councilman Lovato.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with the frustrations of Ward 3. But I do just I've got the referendum pulled up, and Section 6 says the county judge is hereby authorized and instructed to contract with the proper officials of the city of Clarksville to provide for the division of half of the proceeds of the additional tax levied by this resolution not allocated to schools as follows. 20% thereof to be earmarked for instructional salaries in the county's general purpose school fund, the county's statutory share to be allocated to the unified school system, and the remainder to go to the city general's fund. It doesn't matter how I feel. I know that we need this money, and I agree that it should be captured, but that is not what was voted on. And I hear you, it was 1977, not that long ago apparently. But it was voted on, and so my concerns remain the same. We cannot sit up here as elected officials and ignore what was voted on and just change our mind without going through the proper process. I understand that Mr. Bittner has been in touch with MTAS, but I do plan on bending his ear quite a bit more over the next week, and I hope he's looking forward to it. I think there's a better way of doing this that will not lock this money up in escrow. So I'm just asking that you all keep an open mind. If we pass this as is, that money is very likely going to be escrowed, and not only will it lower tax rates for this city, no one's going to be able to use it. And that's my biggest concern, is our tax dollars just being locked up till a judge figures it out. So that's all I have.
Councilman Streetman.
I'd like to start by saying that 77 was 49 years ago, and I know that because that's the year I was born. But
Was this true confession?
well, I just wanted to point out, apparently
Okay.
most of the council up here wasn't born by then. I was. Mayor, this obviously has to go through 2 readings, even if it were effective today.
It's a resolution.
Oh, you're right. I apologize. Sorry. I had a different one pulled up, so I apologize. Okay, so it goes into effect. Is it going to lower anything, or are we going to be able to would we utilize the funds if it's not tied up in probate? Would we be able to utilize it for some of the things that we weren't able to do during the budget process?
Well, it would not lower our certified property tax rate because it's already been set and voted on by council and submitted to the state for their approval, and they get real ill when you try to change it. So we would not be able to do that. It would give us additional revenue, and I would caution us from spending money we don't have, because it'll come in on a monthly allocation, So we need to be very careful, plus we need the additional money to operate on.
Well, and I do have a concern too. I know that the county fire department will be hiring, I believe, quite a few here soon. And I'm not sure what their pay scale is, but we may need those funds so that we're not losing those going that direction to be able to pay. Of course, I mean, I realize we as city taxpayers pay for the county fire department through, well, technically we don't because they utilize different funds to be able to do it. I understand that explanation, but going on with some of the things that you mentioned, us as city taxpayers that are also county taxpayers, it's not just the things you mentioned. There's also, if you remember during the budget, we fund 50% of the Regional Planning Commission. We fund 50% of it, and we fund 50% of it because we're also city taxpayers and county taxpayers. As was mentioned, there's a county fire department, although if a county resident, a non-city resident has an accident inside the city limits, our CPD is responding, our CFR is responding. I do not believe that the county fire department is going to be responding to those. So there's a lot of costs that go along with that. I do know that I have had people from the ward reach out to me in regard to the whole double taxation side of it. So I get it. Like I said, I see both sides of the coin here without a doubt, because that is a point that they have made, because I think, and Mayor, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think about 70% of the taxpayers for the county live in the city and are paying both of those. And so I know that we do have more students that attend the county schools, or attend Clarkson Montgomery County school system. It's more city students, but again, you also have 70%, and they're also paying for those schools through that. So like I said, I do see both sides of the coin here without a doubt. So thank you.
Councilman Markey, you're recognized.
Yes, this is actually a question for Mr. Bittner. Please. It's about, on the first page of the referendum, in section 1, it seems to me, maybe I'm just misreading this, that the referendum states a condition upon which this sales tax is levied. And it's like it's almost to the very end where it states the amend to levy the local sales tax and use of tax at a rate of 1/2 of the rate levied in the Retailer Sales Tax Act, Chapter 30, Title 67, TCA, as amended, so long as the general state rate continues at 4.5%. It doesn't appear to me that when this was written that they anticipated tax to go up. Is this not a condition that is because it's changed, that it nullifies this in a way? I don't understand, I guess, what this line is saying.
No, you couldn't nullify the tax rate there without, I think this was the tax rate at the time in 1977.
Yes.
It must have been what the tax rate was, 4.5%, as opposed to, I think now 5%, plus we get the additional tax on top of that. So this being 4.5% and now being 5%, are you saying, does that nullify this? And I don't think it does.
Okay, yeah, and that's, I guess, what I was saying, because it seems to me like they put some type of condition in this. And I just wanted to double check on that, because if that's the case, then it seems like we have.
Yeah, and I think that condition was applicable in 1977 when they were voting on this, whether to add whatever rate that they added onto the sales tax rate at that time was conditioned on, and must have been conditioned on the general rate continuing at 4.5%.
Yes, but because it has not, and it has changed over time, is that not something that needs to be revisited?
Well, I think, and again, I can take this back and read it, but I think that that condition applied at the time in 1977, but it wasn't a continuing condition forward.
Okay. I guess I'm just trying to get clarification on the conditions that they seem to try to implement in here. And because at that point, then I was just trying to understand, is there really a need for a vote and where we're going with this? But yeah, I'm just trying to understand that line. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Councilman Holloman?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Bittner, so if this were to pass, in this scenario that we're talking about, and then it goes before a judge in Nashville, what would the legal costs look like?
I don't know what the legal costs for the city would look like, but it would be, I think we have 4 attorneys upstairs. So it would be significant man-hours devoted to the case, whatever we are by the hour, or multiply that. But significant man-hours, but I don't think it'd be out of pocket other than the cost of filing a lawsuit or a cost of filing an appeal.
Okay,
But the man-hours would certainly be devoted to it.
But it would take up already stretched legal resources.
Yeah, I mean, there would be significant time devoted to researching and writing the briefs and arguing the matter in the court, in the appellate court, if it were to go that far.
In court, could it grow to require outside legal counsel?
I guess that would be, if we were stretched, I mean, if we are inundated with lawsuits, between now and then, it's hard to say what the future would hold. But it could reach, I mean, I could say it could reach that if we're taxed out. If we are able to continue to dispose of cases when they come in, then not. But I mean, historically, prior to, this is my 3rd year, let's do math here, 2022, there was quite a bit of outside counsel used.
Yeah, okay, all right, thank you.
I think I heard at the Finance Committee for the first time in memory that there were no outside counsel legal bills to be submitted.
That's correct. That is correct. That was.
You didn't get enough credit for that or applause, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Or happy birthday, whichever.
I'll take them both.
All right, thank you. Any other comment regarding this resolution? Chairman Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, we were used to the normal same line, so it just threw us all off when he had a longer line to say to us. Resolution 01-2026-27, a resolution authorizing retirement of a patrol service dog, Draco, from K-9 unit and donating to police officer Logan Oakley. The Finance Committee recommended approval. Officer or patrol service dog Draco has been suffering from arthritis and hip dysplasia, so that's affecting his ability to do the job to the fullest, and I would also imagine causing him quite a bit of pain. So based on the recommendation of the veterinary, it was suggested that he needed to go ahead and enter his stage of retirement, and as it said, it would be given to the officer who is actually his handler.
Questions about this resolution? Chairman Streetman.
That concludes my report, Mayor.
All right, thank you. We're ready for the Neighborhood and Community Services Committee. Chairman Shekina.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll have a full report next week.
Thank you. Parks and Recreation Committee Chair will be back next week. Public Safety Committee Chairman Lovato.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll have a full report next week.
You think? Is that
I
what
said
you
thank you,
Oh,
Mayor.
sorry. I think therefore I am. Okay. Transportation, Streets, and Garage Committee will have a full report next week. Unfinished business, we have ordinance 74, 2025, 26, sponsored by Councilman Shekina through the Finance Committee, and I'll recognize the sponsor.
Thank you, Mayor. We just did a long discussion on our resolution 64. I want to start this and preference this by, I think we just did the finance budget briefing. We have 3 enterprise for the city, right? Gas and water, CDE, and the parking commission. Gas and water, they have rates. We all pay the rates. We don't get a choice on what the rate is, but we pay the rates, and there's a penalty if we don't pay the rates. All right, we lose our gas and water. Same thing with CDE. Now, with the parking commission, it's an enterprise, but it's not an enterprise. It's not self-sustaining as a true enterprise. So that's my dilemma, and as a council member from Ward 4 brought up earlier, our job is to bring things for this body that we see that is out of order, and I think this is out of order. Mayor, it may not be on you, but it's definitely gonna be on the next mayor, that we're gonna have a debt that we keep growing with the Parking Commission. And that's another thing that the next mayor is gonna have to put on his plate to figure out. All right, so this configuration that we're currently in as an enterprise, it's gonna change. Because again, it's costing taxpayers money. So when you talk about costing taxpayers money, this is another system that has failed. It's costing us money. And Mayor, if I'm not mistaken, and I can ask, or you can ask Heather to come up just to confirm, how much did we lose, or how much in the hole have we went into for 2026 as an enterprise fund?
Okay. Without objection, Ms. Boyd, if you'll recall, the parking division is under our Building and Facility Maintenance Department. Heather Boyd came over to run that division from our Finance and Revenue Department. So Councilman Shekinah, if you don't mind, ask the
Yes, thank you.
questions and Ms. Boyd will answer.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Boyd, for 2026, and I know that we went into the hole because I'm on this commission. Can you give us a number of what we went into the hole?
So our net profit or loss position was negative $219,000.
Thank you. Thank you. So that's just one example, and if we go back, we start going back years and peel this thing, it's an up and down thing. But right now, we're paying a maintenance fee, or we're paying a fee on the free parking. The city incurs that cost. So it may be 2 hours of free parking for the folks that are visiting, but somebody's paying a fee to that. And it's relatively small, but every month it's going to continue to add up. So this 200,000 is going to keep growing. And where is that money coming from? It's going to come out of one of these departments' budget. So the mayor and the CFO, they're going to have to figure out who's going to eat this money, right? So that's all I really have to say. Next week, we can vote up or down. I've done my job. I brought it to the council. I presented the problem. I gave, at least a start to a solution. And I think one council member has added something to that, and hopefully other council members will. But if this body votes to push it down the road, it's just going to be a problem for the next mayor. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Boyd. Councilman Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I've spent some time attending the downtown meeting the past couple of months, trying to talk to the business owners and those that are going to be greatly affected by this. When you think about a $40 ticket, if you come down and stay beyond the amount of time that you're supposed to stay, that is definitely not incentive to bring our business, bring people down to our businesses downtown. These are locally owned businesses. We're not talking about your larger corporations that you have up and down Wilma Rudolph Boulevard. The more that you have come down here and look to all the various different businesses that they have here, whether it's going to get something to eat, grabbing something from one of the shops, and visiting everything that we have to offer in the very beautiful downtown that we have. I just think this is going to be very detrimental to them. I know that their belief is we've started using this 2-hour free parking that we have going on downtown as it is. Can we first see how this is going to do and what effect this has on our downtown area before we turn around and change it again? And I know it was previously stated that, well, we can make this change now, and if we need to change something again in 6 months, we can change something again in 6 months. But also continuing to have things change is not going to be conducive to business downtown either, because nobody ever knows what the rules are. If it's this way one time, this way another time, this way another time. I myself don't want to see us completely changing things out for our downtown area whether it's doing away with the parking commission, trying to go back to the way things were many years ago when we had a downtown parking authority. I know that if I got a ticket, my little $5 ticket in my envelope, I could take it and go pay it. And if I didn't, it doubled to $10. Now, like I said, what you're talking about is a $40 ticket. And I think that's going to be very detrimental to what our downtown businesses are trying to do. I also have a concern when it comes to our police department. These are going to have to be sworn officers that are going around, because only a sworn officer can issue a ticket that can be enforced in the city court. Well, if you have something that occurs that's going on, those officers that are now walking around trying to maintain parking, as far as metered parking, they're going to have to go deal with something else. So you're going to have no one monitoring that during that, because their main concern is going to be dealing with an emergency. And our police department has never been in a business of trying to make money. They're not looking to be a profit center. They're looking to serve the public safety of our citizens. So I take issue with what we have in here regarding that. Again, having spent time talking to our downtown business owners who want more of a say in the process of this here, I think we should wait a while on it, or we amend this and there be changes that we need in some of the other areas, because this doesn't just affect the parking in the downtown. Then I can bring forward an amendment where it's looking at parking issues that we have throughout Clarksville, but taking the part out that's in our downtown area and does away with it. Also knowing that once we have our Performing Arts Center built and opened, you're going to have more parking that's going to be occurring in the garage at that time. You're going to be able to utilize charging for parking during events like that, just as we see with the other parking garage that we have in the downtown area. You can utilize that, helping to pay for the bill, but if people aren't coming downtown, you're not going to get any of the parking money that you're planning on to try and pay for that. It's just my opinion that we wait on anything that has to do with changes in our downtown area.
Councilman Lovato, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to start by thanking the sponsor of this. The Parking Commission and the issues that we were having was absolutely not on my radar. And so I have had so much fun going down this rabbit hole of reviewing previous minutes, previous audits. We have a very lovely Desmond study on our website. And so it's been pretty eye-opening. In 2023, our city audit department did audit the parking department. And so yesterday at our meeting, it was decided that they are going to follow up on some of those suggestions that were made, and that should be presented at the audit committee's October meeting. So next week, I am going to be proposing to motion for it to be deferred until at least November, so that we can review what those changes were, or those suggestions were. But within those suggestions, none of it said that we needed to eliminate the parking commission. That was not a suggestion in any of the audit forms. Like the previous speaker, I have concerns about putting this on our police department or even building and codes, any of our other departments. All of them are stretched thin, because this isn't just about parking rates. They're looking at rates, they're looking at leases, garage operations, budgeting, enterprise fund management, technology, long-term planning, communicating with downtown business owners, etc. I don't think our police chief has the bandwidth, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think he has the bandwidth to take all of that on. I also would just like to encourage the council members we need to proceed with caution whenever we're looking at eliminating a layer of oversight, and that's what we're doing with eliminating the parking commission. There are absolutely some adjustments that need to be made, but they're there to collect the voice and to help us run this city better. But with all of that being said, before I bring amendments forward next week, I do have some questions about the structure of our current parking situation. Can somebody break down for me the structure of the parking department as far as the employees go? I understand, like, our director, he wears many hats, but there's over $200,000 in their budget for salaries, and I'm just kind of curious what kind of employees we're looking at under that.
I'll call on Ms. Boyd if she's comfortable answering those questions. Councilman, if you wouldn't mind, ask the question.
Sure. In the parking commission's budget, there's a little over $200,000 in salaries. Exactly who are those? Not their names, but what are their positions?
So we have our parking manager. Our director, as you said, he wears many hats. So in the budget, you'll see that he is only getting 25% of his salary out of the parking budget. His other 75% is out of building facilities maintenance. We have an admin, so she is kind of in charge of being the middleman between our citizens, being able to answer the phone calls. Also, she prepares our parking commission packets. We also have our enforcement officer. We have one full-time employee currently. We have a maintenance individual, so he cleans our garages. We are spending a lot of money in outside services as far as contracting, monthly cleanings, spot cleanings that we were needing in our stairwells. And so we hired a full-time there, and then we have one vacancy currently for another enforcement officer.
Okay, so just to clarify, you only have one enforcement officer, which is the person that goes around and writes the tickets.
Correct.
Okay, and then the maintenance person, they are full-time specifically only for the garage. They do not do,
They are doing a lot of things.
Okay.
So it is maintenance for parking general. That's including meter maintenance. So anytime someone hits one of our meters, he goes out, sets concrete, those kind of things. Parking signs, so any of the signs in our garages, he's in charge of installing those. Drainage mitigation, when we have a lot of these storms and the trees that are near our garages, we have a lot of issues with drainage. So he goes through and cleans all the drains out. Yes, he focuses on the garage a lot and tries to, but he does all of the areas where there's any meters or parking areas in the downtown.
what is the current process if there's a downtown business owner? What is the current process for them to get a hold of the maintenance person to take care of some of those things?
So we would be the avenues, either me or Mikey, so they could reach out to us and let us know the issue, and then we could kind of direct him. We currently still use the building facilities maintenance work order system, so he actually has tracked all of his jobs that he's done since he's joined our team.
When it comes to, and I don't know if this is a you question or someone else, does the commission approve the number of employees? I understand you have one vacancy, but if you were going to add more to the parking department, would the commission have to approve those, or would the city council?
City council, because it's based on the budget approval process, so it would be based on recommendations of the mayor, and then you guys approve our parking budget, which includes those positions.
How much debt total is the parking commission responsible for today? What is the lump sum number?
The total lump sum of the debt, I don't know, but I can say that our fund balance is negative $19,415,325. That is taking in consideration the debt service for the garage. If you look at our FY24 numbers, our fund balance was $1.2 million in the positive, and now that is being counted against us, we're in the hole significantly. That is what's really we're trying to bring to your attention. I ran some numbers in support of council member from Ward 11 bringing this forward to you guys. If you look at just from fiscal year 2024 to 25, there was a decrease in a net loss position of $216,472. Between FY25 and 26, there was a decrease in $210,000. So in just looking back 3 fiscal years, that's $426,000. And like I said, our fund balance is now negative. And as councilperson said, that is now being funded by taxpayer dollars.
So I understand that this council, and this might be a question for you, Mayor Pitts, I understand this council approves their employees and their budget. Where does the commission's authority come into play for approving those things, though?
they have no operational authority, which they shouldn't have because it's a budgetary issue and that lies by city charter and city code within the city council. They set rates, and they hear appeals. And as you've heard from the councilman, the sponsor of this, their meetings last 3 and 4 hours hearing appeals. So this would streamline a lot of the process and I think make it more efficient, frankly.
Okay, this isn't a question, this is a statement, but I do have more questions. I do think it's a bit unfair to point a finger at the commission right now and insinuate in any way that they're failing at their job when they're responsible for $19 million in debt and we're not giving them any say on the budget and how much is being spent and where it's being spent. I understand that there's a fine line between operational decisions and where their authority is, but I think that might be when we're looking at fixing the process here, that might be something that we need to look at. When I looked back on the minutes for the last 12 months, there were several items that were supposed to be voted on. Some of them passed, but a lot of them were just not voted on. And then I couldn't find in the future minutes where that was brought back up. What is the current process for following up on the decisions that they make within the commission meetings?
We kind of set dates so we personally within our department keep up with those dates of, hey, we want to look at this once the Performing Arts Center is built. A lot of the things that are happening within the parking department right now are based on these future things being established, built, functioning, and bringing more citizens and individuals to our downtown. So a lot of it is getting pushed because we don't feel comfortable making the decisions now. And that's we as in management and the parking commission. But I do want to bring attention because you had said, the financial responsibility piece. So the financial responsibility is the revenues, is their financial responsibility. No, they don't have a say in the operational standpoint, but we're supposed to work as a team. The revenues need to support our operations because by the definition of an enterprise fund, that is what's supposed to happen. We currently are offering, I'm not sure if you guys are aware, a 2-hour free program, which I think is great. And the data shows that we have an uptick in customers. I would attribute that to less people using meters, and registering these park mobile sessions, because that's the only way that it was accessible. That was a concern of management on our part that we were not accessing our full public with this 2 hours free. However, the commission decided to push it forward. But because of this program, we are negative $179,000 in revenue total between fiscal years. But just from that program specifically, if you just look at our one account, which is park mobile fees, that's a $81,000 decrease. With an additional, we are paying for people to park because we're paying so far in fiscal year 2026, we paid $18,213 for citizens to access that 2 hours free because it is on that park mobile system and there is a convenience charge that the commission decided that we would cover for the citizens. So just instances like that is the financial responsibility of the rates need to support an enterprise fund, and that's why we're bringing this forward as it's not currently.
I agree. When it comes to the revenue, there are certain aspects that I have questions about, like the EV chargers. Do we have an update on that contract?
What do you mean as far as the contract?
There's some confusion with the commissioners that where we're at in the process of even contracting because they have not seen the revenue from the EV, the chargers in the parking garage.
So they voted that would be completely free to the citizens. I'm not sure of the date on those minutes. I could definitely look into that and get you a specific date that they voted on it. It was within the most recent year because I joined the team in February of 25. So I know it was more recently. We got the chargers up and running. We have 16 of them in the First Street garage. But that is completely, they voted that the citizens would not cover anything. So that means we're covering electricity on our bill from CDE as well as the charge.
Okay. So there's currently no contract being negotiated for charging for those EVs then? It's not even in the purview right now?
No, so when we built the garage, the contractors installed them. So we have ChargePoint, we are in contract technically with them. And that's how individuals are using our charging stations, is because we have the ChargePoint contract. But that was set up within the building of the garage.
What about the tracking for the revenue? I understand that there's not quotas for the enforcement officers, but are we looking at things like how many tickets, at certain times of day, in which areas, et cetera? Because if I were on the commission, I'd want that kind of information so that I could set rates appropriately and make decisions. Are we tracking anything like that in any way?
Management is, and we've offered information like this. And of course, we always tell our commission members, always ask if there's additional details that you need in your management report. Because each month I try to give analytics as far as, how much we spent for the EV charging stations. I show how many tickets were written. I show how many were paid versus unpaid versus voided to just try to give them information. So no, we are not currently adding that to our management reports, but it's because we haven't been asked to add that. And we've continuously kind of been like, hey, what can we provide you that would help? And I do think at this most recent meeting, they asked for that, and we'll be adding that for future parking commission meetings.
Perfect. So keeping with the revenue, because that's the driving force, right? We're in all this debt. We need to make the money. Does the parking manager or the director have the authority to determine where meters are placed, where city parking is, loading zones, blocked off parking spots, things like that? Or does that always go in front of the commission for decisions?
So we try to work hand in hand because, of course, they have to have a say in anything that affects our revenues. So a lot of it we have to bring to their attention and say, hey, we would like this to be a paid spot.
Okay.
Do you guys approve? So yes, we do try to work hand in hand on those things.
Have they ever voted on anything or made a decision that would have gone against either our code, charter, or Tennessee law in any way?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. So I guess where my confusion especially lies is with the collections of tickets that aren't paid. Why can other cities collect on those without using the police department and Clarksville cannot? Is it a state law issue? And this might be a question for Mr. Bittner because he likes going up there. Is it a state law issue, or is it a city code issue, or is it a software issue?
I'm going to let legal handle it because I do know that there is state regulations on it, but I don't want to speak to it. So if you'd like me to come back up, I'm happy.
Yeah, without objection, we'll ask Mr. Johnston, Zach Johnston, Assistant City Attorney, who's done a lot of work doing research on this. So Councilman Lovato, if you would direct your question to Mr. Johnston.
And I think the rest of my questions will be for you.
Okay.
As long as it's not about my birthday.
Last month.
Your first question about how other cities are doing it, I always think it's not a great idea to compare how other cities are doing it, because whether they're doing it the right way or the wrong way, we can't know until that's challenged somewhere down the line. So I know that Franklin uses, I think, transit employees, but that still keeps that in an enterprise fund, is my understanding of the way that it would work here. I know that Knoxville has been brought up in the past, but Knoxville's a home rule city. They get to do things that we don't get to do because of the form of government that they are.
Okay. So is there any laws preventing the Clarksville Parking Commission from sending tickets to city court?
In order to cite people into city court, you have to be one of those specifically enumerated employees, government employees. So I don't believe they have the power to get those tickets into city because they're separate bodies. The only time you can try to get some sort of citation into city court is to be one of those specifically enumerated employees.
Is there any law that prevents us from sending those people to collections without going to city court?
I'm not aware of one. My research, I didn't go look in that direction. So to say that there's not a law out there, I'm not comfortable saying that.
Okay, that's all the questions that I have. Again, I will make a motion next month that this be postponed until we get the report back from our audit department. That's all I have. Thank you.
Councilman Chandler, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree completely with the council person from Ward 11. But my holdup is this didn't happen overnight. And, we've only been working now, a couple of months. And I think we need to back up and look at this a little closer. I actually had a business owner that this past Monday, I met him, we got in his truck, we rode around town, he pointed out several things, and we had a good conversation, and he wasn't speaking for all the business people downtown, but he was speaking for some of them, and, it appears they want to have discussions about this as well, about getting it straightened out. I've had conversations about the law enforcement part of this, and if they write a ticket, $40 ticket, and it goes to court, and the person doesn't show up, they just don't show up. You can carry them to civil court. It's not like when you give a speeding ticket in city court, if you don't show up, the state has an agreement, will suspend their license. You can't suspend their license for a non-traffic violation. So, we're back in the civil court thing again. I would ask Ms. Boyd again, I know you're gonna get tired of coming up here. You don't necessarily have to come up here, it's just, could you, before, say, next Wednesday, provide us with how many spots over in the parking garage that are reserved?
Are you wanting the new First Street garage, or do you just want all garages? Because we have the First Street garage, the Cumberland garage, and then the Franklin Street garage.
All of them?
All of them.
Yes. And the ones that are paying, the ones that are free. One thing was pointed out to me with that businessman was, we went to the very top floor, and there's like 20 spots reserved for law enforcement. And court was going on. Believe me, I know about court and going to court up there. And there were just as many down below, and I couldn't wait a minute. Here we got, why are all these reserved up here for police? I don't think we had that many police working at one time that day. The 2 hours is costing us, would you say $18,000?
That's only inconvenience fees. So if you're not considering the revenue decrease, it's $18,213 that we're paying for the citizens to park on our streets.
2 hours? That's a long time. I don't think, what do people come down, I want somebody to explain to me, what a person come down here downtown for 2 hours? I mean, there's not that much shopping. It shouldn't take you 2 hours to eat. at a business.
If I could add, we did try to propose shorter amount of time to the parking commission, but again, this was their decision, and we just tried to provide data that either supported it or did not. We try to offer peak hours, for instance, instead of all day free 2-hour parking. So maybe 11 to 1, 12 to 2, which would have decreased the amount that we were losing in revenues, but.
Why not reduce the amount that you would charge and take the time slot out? You know, you're gonna be here for a minute, you're gonna pay. This is what you pay. Don't necessarily have to charge them the higher end fees. Like I said, I agree completely with Ward 11 that something needs to be done, but what I'm hearing kind of disturbs me. And what I'm hearing is, you know, well, I was on the council before 4 years. I've been back on almost 2 years again. And until tonight, I've never had or heard of a report to this body. I'm just now finding out that, hey, you know, well, we discussed reducing the time, but they voted no. You know, people are expecting us to come up with a solution to something we have no control over, really. You know, unless we change stuff. I am totally 100% against the police department because they can't put somebody down here all the time. And so what's he gonna do? Your regular enforcement officer is gonna find somebody, I need to write and get a $40 ticket written, and Chief Burdine now is gonna have to send a patrol car down here to write and I'm gonna say nitpicky $40 ticket when they could be out here protecting the citizens. You know, it wasn't broke down overnight, and we can't fix it overnight. And like I said, we've only had this for a couple of months, and I think we need to pull the reins on this horse. And Mayor, no disrespect to you, but we're changing administrations. That's obvious. And we'll be into August in a couple of days. New administration might not want to go along with what might not want his or her police department out here writing $40 tickets that a person still doesn't have to pay. I think somebody, one time, Mr. Joe said something about how many thousands of dollars one person owed. Well, I hate to be this way, but why don't we have them in civil court? We've done it before. So I think it's more along the lines, if you want to know the truth about the matter, the disconnect between us and the parking authority. Thank you, Mayor.
Well, while the horses and the faces may change, the problem doesn't. The problem remains the same.
Right.
And what we're trying to do is fix the process, trying to reconnect what's been disconnected.
Exactly.
And I'm not pointing fingers at the parking commission, because they're 4 citizens who give up a lot of time every month to devote to serving this city. So I'm not pointing fingers at them. I'm just saying the problem will not go away with a new administration. Councilman Shekina, you recognize.
Yes, Mayor, some great points, some great discussions. That's part of the reason why I brought this up, so we could have some discussions about this. You know, we hear $40, right? We can, you know, the ticket rate could be whatever, but right now, it's pretty much free because nobody has to pay. So we really don't even need somebody walking around giving tickets, all right? And with the free hour 2 parking, it should really just be free hours all day. Maybe we won't have to worry about that admin fee that we're raking up that's costing the city. That again, the next administration is still gonna have to deal with it either way, because we have a debt that the parking can't pay off, and it's growing. and some other department is gonna have to eat that debt. And that's not, when you talk about fair, that's not fair for another department to eat somebody else's debt. But it's gonna happen. And the next administration is gonna have to deal with it, sooner or later. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Streetman, you're recognized.
I have a question, financial questions. I apologize. So you have an Apple Watch. I hope you're getting your steps on there. You had mentioned, it was 100,000, 200,000 as far as negative, and that this will fix that. That's why, part of the reason we're doing this is to fix that problem.
So I'm not going to say that it's just going to fix it. This is entrusting all of you to have the power to fix it. Right now, we have our parking commission, members, and each time we have new members come on, they have different objectives or different things that they want to do, different free hour, 2 hours free programs, or, which is going to make our revenues and losses fluctuate a lot. I pulled 9 years of data because that was just all that I had on that I could access without going to finance. And I'll say, like, for instance, let's say from fiscal year 2021, we were a net loss position of $16,000. To FY22, we were positive $8,411. The next year, we increased to $86,000. So that was an increase of $78,000 that we were in the positive that year. So that is why we're bringing this forward, is just so that we can have some kind of consistency in this, and so that the policies, when we did a look back on all of our meeting minutes, for, I think it was 2019, July of 2019, there's been 47 different changes that the parking commission has voted. Our biggest complaint is that parking is confusing, and it's because these people come in and, they want to try to make it better. I'm not doubting that at all, but it's just that we keep on releasing different things, and there's just not any consistency that management or the citizens can follow.
And that same thing could happen even with the council doing it.
Very true.
So financial question though for you. You mentioned the $18,000 that we're losing in fees for the 2 hour free parking. And you also mentioned that, one of the employees, part of his job is fixing meters that get hit by cars. How much are we spending on meters on the app, on having that be the way we control the parking downtown?
So the meters, just to clarify, are completely analog. They're honestly very outdated, and what we have on stock is it. Like, there's no fixing them in the future. We need to either buy new ones or get a new system. When I say Park Mobile fees, these are the stickers that are on the meters, or you can access it without the stickers, and you can access the zones of the downtown. So the street is a zone, the garages are different zones as well. So when we're talking about that loss, it's because how the commission voted on it was, we didn't have a way to make it 2 hours free for everyone. So Park Mobile was the only way that we could kind of get them to register their free session. And that's where we're getting that 35-cent convenience fee per transaction.
Well, before we look at buying more meters, have we looked at other technology where, it's things as simple as the parking person that's enforcing it utilizing an app on their phone where they can scan and keep up with it? Or I know there's equipment that can be purchased where they're literally just walking along or riding a golf cart along, going along and capturing that information where it'll let them know if it goes over the time, versus having to have the meters that are there and a Park Mobile app and everything involved with that.
So we have recently, our commission tasked us with kind of looking into what other surrounding areas are doing. For instance, Franklin, which they use a GIS software that kind of geo tracks, like it would drop a pin essentially of a car parked, and it would have a picture of their license plate, and then it would be kind of on the enforcement officer to go back and check if that car was still there. That is an option and it would save us money, but of course, we're gonna have to think about expanding our team and getting several more enforcement officers to be able to account for kind of going backwards in time with the technology. License plate readers, how you're talking about driving around with a golf cart and a camera, that is very possible to do. However, it's very expensive. So with where we are in a net loss position, we could not afford that. I know that the city police department already has that kind of software, and that was again kind of thought through when we presented this ordinance, is that they have access to that technology already.
And I would think there'd be a way they could share utilizing, working with our IT department. There may still be ways to do that. And then going back to the police department, if it ends up being a police officer, a sworn officer that has to do it versus what we have now, what's the pay difference between sworn officer and the enforcement?
I have no idea of that exact figure, so I would need to rely on maybe Kristen or Chief. I don't know what they make. I know what our enforcement officer makes.
And you don't have to answer it tonight. We're not
Yeah,
voting tonight.
okay.
But if you wouldn't mind getting that information for me, because my assumption is there would be a higher cost involved with that.
There is absolutely, because, I mean, we all know the extensive training our police officers have to go through. And that is not something that is required for a parking enforcement officer. So there's absolutely a very large increase in cost there.
All right. Thank you.
You're
That
absolutely
concludes
welcome.
my report. Thank you.
Councilman Marquis, you're recognized.
All right, don't go too far, Miss Boyd.
Ms. Boyd, Heather.
I mean, she might be able to answer. If not, there may be someone else out there. But I've looked at this in depth on how other cities provide free parking and how they pretty much manage it. And it seems to be, and you kind of hinted a little bit at it, that there seems to be a nice uptick during certain times of day also. Do we have data to show during, I guess during 2-hour breaks, how much revenue in sales tax the businesses are making, because we're paying for it, right? So the way that other cities do it, it's a balance. If they pay for free parking, they expect that people come in and they go to those shops, which therefore increases sales revenue and sales tax. And it balances off that difference that the cities put into their parking garages and other equipment. So is there a way that we can find out what that data looks like for us? We're spending X amount of money, we know that. How much are we now bringing it in, and does that give us some balance somewhere? Or if not, how do we bridge that gap ultimately?
I do believe our previous CFO did do some kind of research in this and might have the data from then. I think we would have that on hand, but I do think it would take quite some time to collect the data, because of course then we would be relying, I think, on the state to get the data as well of the sales tax difference during those hours. But I could definitely see if we could access the one that was done previously.
Yeah, because again, it seems to be that there's a connection there with how other cities get it done. And then they're not losing money in that sense. But yeah, if we can figure that out, I think that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilman Peters, for Ms. Boyd or just generally?
Ms. Boyd.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just got a couple of questions, and I don't want to belabor this. Just a couple of things you said kind of piqued my interest. You said free EV charging. Why do we do that? Why do we give free EV charging? And then one, who's using them? Is it employees of businesses downtown? How often do they rotate the spot? I mean, are we monitoring this stuff? Is somebody from the Black Horse parking in the parking garage, charging their vehicle all day and working 10 hours? And how do we monitor this?
So the parking commission did, I mean, these are all concerns. I won't say all of them, because the ones as far as tracking who is parking in there, that's not ever been data we considered tracking, who was in them. We did suggest that we need to be at least charging for the spot. We suggested that, hey, we would be covering the electric charge for this, but also the parking contract with ChargePoint. But it was ultimately their decision to cover the full cost of the EV stations.
Yeah, that just don't make sense. I mean, why are we doing that? I know if I go to Nashville and I pull into a garage It takes a picture of my license plate. I click a little, whatever you guys call these little things. I was born before 1977. I was in high school in 1977. So my question is, when it does that, I click on an app, it locates it to my tag. So then I go into the restaurant or wherever I'm going, and it's 2 hours free parking. 10 minutes before that 2 hours is up, I get a text message that says, hey, you got 10 minutes, and you're going to be starting to get charged X amount, whatever per hour. Why can't we do technology like this? I mean, I don't understand.
We
If you
offer.
give me 2 hours free parking and nobody's checking, I'll be there for 3 or 4 hours.
Absolutely.
Same way if I'm an employee at one of the restaurants or businesses downtown, I'm gonna charge my vehicle all day. I mean, we need controls on these kinds of things. We're allowing this to happen. And I agree with the chair over there. The way it's going, we don't really need it the way it's going. We're just spinning our wheels, right? I mean, I agree that we need to take care of the downtown businesses because they need that income. They need them people coming in. But the way we're doing it right now is just, I might as well hitch up a horse and wagon and pull on into town. I mean, that's how antiquated our system seems to be. That definitely needs to be looked at too. So that's all I got to say. I was just curious about that. And then one other question, which I know you can't answer, is probably more legal. So I'll let you off the hook here. I'm gonna ask a
Thank you so
legal
much.
question. I know the answer to this, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. Can I?
Mr. Johnston?
I thought Heather was doing a fine job.
I know the answer, but I'm gonna ask it anyway, just for the record. Why can we not allow someone to re-register their vehicle or, well, maybe driver's license, probably a bit much, that's state, but why can we not prevent somebody from re-registering a vehicle who owes parking fines?
I don't think that our parking commission authority could ever, I don't think it rises to that level. I think that's a state thing. Like you said, I think that's a different, I mean, we're talking different bodies here by grand scale, I would say.
So who controls the driver's license and vehicle registrations for Clarksville?
The county, I believe.
The county that we pay taxes to and will taxes to, right?
Sure.
You see where I'm going with this?
I do.
Yeah, but they come into our city and they violate our parking and they don't have to pay for it. I'll let that go there. This really rubs me the wrong way, this whole thing, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Brown?
Thank you, Mayor. So I have a question for Ms. Boyd. And while we're at it, the county does not do the driver's licenses. That's the state. The vehicle registrations are done through the county clerk, but they are a state registration also.
Heavily regulated by the
Yes.
state.
But I don't know why we couldn't boot them, which is done in other places, but yeah, I understand. So, yeah, I know the state has kind of restricted the booting part also, but, have you looked at other cities? Are they using collection agencies to collect out overdue fines? Cause I know the city has done it in the past where those were sent to a collection agency where we couldn't, and of course, the collection agency is gonna take a percentage, but if they take 30% of the money that's due, and we get 70, we still got 70. So, as that came up,
Yes, absolutely. We're always trying, because currently we have about $804,000 of outstanding violations that have not been paid. That was another piece of us bringing this up, is because as a parking commission, we have very little authority. I know that one of our council members said that even when it goes over to CPD, if they don't come to court, it sits there as well, but they still have a lot more jurisdiction where we don't. As far as collecting though, because of the type of tickets we are writing, being that we have no information and because we are a parking commission, we cannot run we can't get any of the data as far as names, addresses, anything on those individuals that have the parking ticket. So we not only need to send it to a collection agency, but we also need to first send it to someone that can give us the proper information for the collection agency to be able to collect. So that is the big issue we're also running into, is we only are just putting a ticket on their windshield, and that's all we can do as a parking commission. And so we would need more information to send it to a collection agency. And that's required on a CPD ticket because they have the access to different avenues to get, names of individuals, addresses, phone numbers, stuff like that.
Okay, and then like one of the previous speakers about the EV chargers, so they're not even having to pay for the parking spot. They're getting free electricity, free charging. To me, that just seems extraordinarily generous of us to do that, which is costing us money. I think, even at the minimum, they should pay for the parking spot. I understand the 2-hour free parking. I don't have as much of an issue with that, because if you go to completely free parking on the street, then all these employees are gonna take up all these street parking spots right in front of the businesses, and then the customers aren't gonna come, because they're gonna have to park 2 blocks away, so they're not gonna be down there. But the 2-hour free parking, I may go eat, that may take an hour, then I'm shopping, that may take, part of another hour or so. So, that part is not that big of a deal, but if it went to free on-street parking, these businesses wouldn't have customers, because all these employees downtown would take all them parking spots that are closer to their work. And that, you could say that the business would enforce that with their employees, but they're worried about their, their business, the customers coming in and out. That may be another business that the person works at, or working in the court center or the attorney's offices or anywhere else downtown. So, I can't see going free on street all the time, because the businesses need that turnover, those parking spots, for those customers to come in. But I think that's all I had for you.
Okay, perfect.
Councilman Lovato
I just have
or
one,
Ms. Boyd?
whoever
No.
wants to answer it. I don't care.
All right.
It's
Any volunteers?
back to the point of collections and sending those unpaid fines. This is not an issue of legal ability, it's a data collection ability. So the software does exist when they're writing tickets to capture the registration of that vehicle and know who the owner is. So purchasing that software, is that a commission decision, or is that a parking manager and director decision?
So I think that this is more needs to be turned over to legal, because my understanding is that legally, as a parking commission, we cannot get that information, because we do not have the proper clearance. So to be able to access that data, that only police officers or those, I want to say there's a section in the code that under police chief.
Yeah.
Do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, I think what she's references is the NCIS getting that data information. CPD has a lot different capabilities, a lot different authorities to get information out of VIN numbers, information off of license plate that the parking commission necessarily doesn't have.
I hear what you're saying. However, I find it very difficult to believe that all of these other cities in Tennessee are doing it wrong and Clarksville is doing it right. How can other parking commissions have this authority, but Clarksville is the outlier and doesn't? I need to see the actual law that you're referencing.
I'm not sure what these other cities and counties are doing is my question. Whether they're doing it right or wrong, whether they're doing it properly through collections, I don't know what that looks like, is what I'm saying.
The difference in when I did my research is that we are the only one that is an enterprise fund. How we are separate from city general. Every other city, so when you look at Franklin, Murfreesboro, they are under their city general government and they go to their city court system when they write ticketing, like tickets in the downtown. So that is the key point to just our legal ability within as an enterprise fund with a parking commission. Because the tickets aren't going to an actual judge.
And I'm not arguing with you, but that is different than what the previous CFO had stated, because the previous CFO was under the understanding that it was also a software issue, and that is why they could not send it to collections. So it's the back and forth. I would like legal very much to research what other cities are doing and what it looks like, because if another city has perfected the wheel. We don't need to reinvent it. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Any more comment or question? All right. We are now under new business. First item is ordinance 6. Councilman Streetman, you're the sponsor. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance 6, 2026, 27, first reading. An ordinance approving commercial driveway access for applicant Bill Mace to Ted Crozier Boulevard with access points designated on the survey of McKay Burchett and Company Engineers dated July 20, 26. And you can see from the attachment where the Exhibit A is there. Many years ago when, and I will have Mr. Smith come up here and speak to this as well, but many years ago when we were building or getting the property and everything for Ted Crozier Boulevard, the way it was obtained and voted on was that the city council controlled the access points, at least through this area here. So in order to change and gain access points, the council has to approve those access points. As you'll see from the Exhibit A, this would allow where you have old Dunlop Lane, the way it currently runs and intersects with Ted Crozier Boulevard just before the new Dunlop Lane where the hospital is located. This would, at the expense of them, not the city, they would be realigning the old Dunlop Lane so that it intersects right there at the light, making it a four-way intersection, and then also allows for another proposed full access further down, which is directly across where there is already a curb cut. I will ask Mr. Smith to come up here because he can speak more intelligently on this than I can, if that's okay with you, Mayor.
Is he awake? He is awake. All right, what is your question?
It's not my question, but him and I have discussed this in detail, and I wanted him trying to talk just a little bit about it. And he was fully aware that I was going to ask him to come up here and speak on this tonight.
All right.
Ditto. Just,
What she said?
yeah, what she
Okay.
said. So this is a fee simple acquisition. It would be just the same as if we were proposing a connection to the lot where we're going to build precinct 4. It wasn't established when it was acquired as right of way. So it gives the council, much like Spring Creek, the same situation there. The council would control anybody that's proposing to access that roadway absent the established or design connections that were in the design phase of that project or the engineering phase of that project. So when this original acquisition came forward, it came forward also with a proposed connection. And I think it was in the aughts, I think 2005, maybe 2006, to an apartment complex that was there. So kind of in that precedent, anybody that's proposed to connect to Ted Crozier or in the future Spring Creek has been told, you're going to have to take this through. There is a zoning request that's behind this. Mr. Tindall, I think, looks like he's gone, but there is a zoning request that accompanies this for a mixed-use development on this portion of the Feltner property. There's multifamily, there's single family, there's a number of components there. Of course, as mentioned, the realignment of Dunlop will be done at the owner's expense, which is going to be, I would think, in excess of $1 million. And then the stub road connection, the way they have the zoning set up and with the subdivision regs, obviously multifamily and commercial can't egress through single family, so it helps with what they're proposing. This would, of course, accompany the meets and bounds that's in your packets. So again, they're modifying city property, which is why it's before you, so.
And this has to come before the zoning can come because they can't do the full analysis on the zoning side of it until this part is done to know where different connections would be. And I know often we ask for different traffic studies and for us to have a full understanding of the impact of what the rezoning would be. But as was mentioned, the plan for the already submitted zoning application does involve single family, multifamily, and commercial. And of course, when you think about that mix being in there, the other advantage with Dunlop Lane, old Dunlop Lane, lining up at the light is, of course, if you have any type of emergency that occurs in that area, you're going to have easy access for that emergency traffic to be able to enter and exit through there. And with the hospital right across from there, this also kind of goes hand in hand with the development that's occurring across the new Dunlop. I can't think of The road we've got there, I've lived here forever, so that was Dunlop and everything changed. But where you've got the Costco development going on, and one of the benefits that we've heard about there is that you allow a lot of walkability and being able to do things right in your same area. This, with that zoning, would look to do the same thing. But again, this is not the zoning. This is strictly allowing for those two access points to occur, where again, it'll correct that old Dunlop connection with Ted Crozier to where it lines up with the light at their expense, as well as put the other access point where there is also already a curb break. And they would have to follow all the rules and the stipulations that is put forward by the street department for the different access points that go along there, as well as the improvements to the roadways in there.
Did she say it like you wrote it?
Yeah, well, yeah, right. And the planning commission. So both the planning commission and the street department, regs for access would have to be met.
I've worked with Mr. Bittner on this. I have spoken detail with Mr. Smith and Mr. Tyndall in trying to get this all figured out and knowing the exact process we needed to go through.
Okay. Councilman Brown for Mr. Smith or just in general?
Possibly,
Okay,
partially.
all right.
Is Heather
So,
available or, I mean?
The lining of the old, old Dunlop Lane is, it's gonna be a big benefit, especially if this other part passes. The lower stub road, proposed full access road down there, do you know if that will require a traffic light there? Cause if they're talking multifamily, single family, commercial, there's gonna be a lot of traffic trying to come out there.
Correct. So as that site develops and as that comes before the planning commission and those actual site plans start to roll in and we see what they're building versus what they're proposing to build, then obviously those regulations would start to step up. So it could come back very mild, the traffic counts could be low and one wasn't required versus, something stepped up or a denser multifamily application that might increase some of those peak hour trips.
Okay. We don't have an idea of how many residences they're looking at, do we?
I don't, again, we haven't spent a lot of time. I'd asked that this come through concurrent, kind of like what Mr. Tyndall does on some of those others, like back to back, don't approve one without the other. But he felt it was better to stagger these and get the access approved before the zone.
Well, I mean, I think, the access there is gonna be needed at some point. So I can understand going and getting this part started, but, that gives them an idea of where they need to put their roads, already having this part approved. So that was just my concern, is the traffic volume coming out at the proposed full access, the non-Dunlop Lane one, because, how much volume is gonna be through there, but, aligning the old Dunlop Lane with the new one on the other side is just makes sense to me.
That's good. We don't have to pay for that, so that's great.
Thank you.
Councilman Clance for Mr. Smith or just generally?
Mr. Smith.
All right.
So when you say we don't have to pay for that, they're paying for the lights,
Everything, yeah. That's
all of it, to the standard of the street department? or-
exactly that.
Okay. And then I concur with the councilman from Ward 9 about understanding that we haven't got the data for the mixed-use traffic study at that point. I appreciate the forward thinking. I think that's imperative. That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Councilman Streetman, anything else on that ordinance?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. The other two items under new business have to do with designations, committee reports. The first one, Resolution 3, has to do with designating Phase 2 of the Spring Creek Parkway from the bridge to Wilma Rudolph Boulevard in honor and memory of Sergeant Major retired Theophilo Macias, calling it the Theophilo Macias Memorial Parkway, a highly decorated veteran and longtime resident of our community. The second one has to do with designating Dunlop Lane from Crozier Boulevard to the bridge that crosses over the interstate in honor of Lieutenant Colonel retired Dr. Tom Ely, who was the longtime medical director at Gateway Medical Center, Tenova, and now he's retired from there when Vanderbilt purchased the hospital. So those two designations are before you. I'll be glad to answer any questions. Those are coming from me. All right. Seeing none, we're ready for public comments. We allow 3 people 5 minutes each. Any member of the public wish to address the council? If you would, give us your name, and you have 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm Justin Swallows. I live downtown. I don't own a business downtown. I don't own property downtown. I own a home just outside downtown. It's a special place to me. It's a place that I have spent a lot of time. My wife and I actually got started in a little one-bedroom apartment downtown, and we felt like we were on our way because we live downtown in a place where local business could grow and thrive. And you all got an email in your inbox from me about what charging $40, a $40 ticket punishable by law could do to our downtown business community. I actually worked for an ad agency downtown as a young man, and we did a little TV show. We would go into the different businesses. We called it Downtown the TV Show, and we would go into the different businesses and do little business features, and I think all but one of those businesses are gone. It's a very volatile place to try and grow a small business, and I don't think that $40 tickets punishable by law is going to be something that helps. And again, just from a perception standpoint, when that comes out, it's a headline on Clarksville Now, and it says, $40 tickets punishable by law. If 50 people decide, I'm not going to deal with that, I'm not coming downtown, we will lose businesses. I've sat through this meeting, and I appreciate all the work that all of you do, and I hear concerns about sales tax revenue and trying to find a way to get that back from the school system. And I can't help but think this could kill some sales tax revenue. We could lose businesses downtown. I hear concerns about neglect of buildings. There's a lot of old historic buildings downtown that are sitting empty right now. The businesses that we used to have, the Front Page Deli, Kelly's, Frank's, Regattas, Hodgepodge. We had a lot of businesses downtown that aren't there anymore. We got a lot of empty buildings. And I understand the stress of trying to figure out how to pay for a $20+ million parking garage. We had a councilman mention that, this didn't happen overnight. I think the pressure kind of did, when that parking garage went up, we got to figure out how to pay for that thing. And I understand that. And I don't have all the answers. But if you try to do it on the backs of our small businesses downtown, it's going to hurt. We're going to lose businesses, and you're going to have to look in the mirror when we do. So I want to advocate for those people. And again, you've all got an email from me in your inboxes. If you want to reach out, I'd be happy to talk to you. I don't have a dog in the hunt. It's just a place that I love. And I want to try to find a way to support these people and grow downtown. And I don't think this does that. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to address the council? All right, thank you very much. We will now go into attorney-client privilege. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a private session between our city attorney and the city council. So we'll ask everyone to please exit the chambers.